Chapter 4200. The little girl's expression changed slightly, and she hastily turned to look at Arbor. "Crown Princess, why are you doing this?" Arbor gazed at her apathetically. "This Crown Princess will follow you over to pay respects to Her Majesty, the Queen Dowager. There's no need to go through so much trouble." When she said the word "pay respects," the little girl felt that the little stoic's voice was extremely icy for some reason. She shuddered for no reason, and her entire body inexplicably shuddered along with her. "What?" Arbor stared at her icily. "Do you still need to think carefully about where the Queen Dowager's bedchamber is?" The little girl shuddered for no reason. She instantly realized something when she saw the trace of mockery hanging on that stoic face. She was afraid that the Crown Prince Consort had already seen through her little trick. But that was to be expected. The Crown Princess was originally an exceptionally intelligent person. Her little trick was clearly not enough in front of the Crown Princess. Who could she blame? She could only blame herself for being inferior. If she had been a bit faster just now, and Chun Gong had shaken her off, he could have escaped by himself and left her here. There wouldn't be any problems or troubles. In that case, she might have to initiate another plan. The little girl took a deep breath and suddenly reached out to press it to her lips. However, before she could whistle, she felt pain on her fingertips. His face was filled with horror as he looked down, only to see two severed fingers falling to the ground. Blood gushed out, and the girl's complexion instantly paled. She was on the verge of collapsing. Xiao Mu twirled the glowing dagger in her hand as she stared at her frostily with a pair of chilly eyes. After a long while, she said, "Did you think that the fragrant powder scattered in this garden combined with the bewildering fragrance on your lapel would make me delirious after a long time?" The little girl couldn't help but shudder violently. Her eyes widened in shock as she stared at her in disbelief. It was as if Arbor had said something that made her feel extremely terrified. "Wishful thinking," Arbor said coldly. He glanced at the winding forest at the side. With a cry of surprise, a black figure was kicked out. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal smiled as he waved the small golden fan in his hand. However, his eyes were extremely cold. "Jojo, I caught a peeping Tom." Arbor's gaze fell on the black figure. He saw that it was a man in his early 20s, with oily hair and a powdered face. However, his shifty eyes kept darting back and forth in their sockets as they stared at Xiao Mu. Arbor asked coldly, "Who is this person?" The small garden was naturally quiet at this moment. The little girl, whose waist was wrapped by Arbor's wooden vines, didn't dare to speak. The man in his early 20s didn't dare to speak carelessly. Arbor said indifferently, "It doesn't matter if you don't want to talk. Search his soul." The girl looked at her in horror, her expression completely blank. She probably didn't expect that there would be such an arrogant person in this world. He proposed to search someone's soul just because of a disagreement. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal smiled and reached out to press the girl's head. The girl cried out in panic, "No, you can't kill me. You cannot." She screamed in horror and hurriedly roared, "I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. It's the young master of the Chun family. Chun, the young master of the Chun family's branch family." Madame wanted to frame the Crown Princess. She found this young master of the Chun family to fabricate the truth. Chapter 4201. Using some catalyzing drugs to create the illusion that the Crown Princess and young Master Chun are having an affair. Before she could finish, the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal slapped her across the face. "How dare you?" Ma Shurchin looked at the girl in disgust. At this moment, Xiao Mu had already kicked the ashen-faced young Master Chun to the ground. Her small foot stepped on the young master's face, ruthlessly rolling it around. Her eyes were filled with endless mockery. This brainless Empress Dowager was playing this kind of trick on her. It seemed that she had lived too comfortably in the harem for so long that she had completely forgotten what kind of world this was. A weakling dared to take advantage of her and wanted to teach her a lesson? Very well. At the same time, Empress Dowager Chun, who was eating seasonal fruits in her bedroom and enjoying the service of a palace maid, was leisurely leaning on the brocade couch. She was in a good mood and squinted her eyes slightly. She did not want to be so extreme, but that crown princess was too much of an eyesore. She blocked her way and was disobedient. She even took the position of Mo Lian's official wife and was not willing to give way to others. She ate the meat herself and did not even give others a drop of soup. Was there such a logic? Since that was the case, she could not be blamed for going all out and not showing any mercy. Empress Dowager Chen thought of the comfortable days to come and could not help but smile as she picked up a grape on the table. Just as she was about to put it into her mouth, she heard a loud bang. The door of her dormitory fell inwards with a loud bang, smashing into the ground with a loud bang. Empress Dowager Chen's fingers, which were holding the grape, froze. A slender red figure flew in and barged in. Outside, a thunder of drought came at the perfect moment. Boom! The eunuchs and palace maids kneeling by the Empress Dowager's feet all looked over in shock. Empress Dowager Crown Princess? At that moment, the little crown princess was dressed in a red battle robe. Under the thunderous drought, she looked particularly dazzling. Her snow-white face was expressionless. When she stared at the Empress Dowager, the latter shuddered unexpectedly. She felt like she was facing an evil spirit that had climbed up from the depths of hell. The little crown princess did not give them much time to react. She quickly walked forward and pulled Empress Dowager Chen off the fragrant brocade couch. She grabbed Empress Dowager Chen's long hair and dragged her out of the door like she was dragging a broom. Everyone was speechless. A eunuch reacted and screamed, "Empress Dowager!" When a young crown prince consort turned around to glare at him coldly, he immediately shut his mouth and obediently knelt at the side without moving. The Empress Dowager was rudely dragged from the couch to the floor. At this moment, because she was indoors, she was not wearing her outer garment. Her doo-doo was half undone, and her undergarments were in disarray. However, she was forced to drag the young crown prince consort out the door. Empress Dowager Chen's eyes were filled with flames of anger. She felt her mind go blank as she lost control of her emotions and screamed out loud. "What are you doing? Crown Princess, you are truly audacious. How dare you? How dare you treat Aijia like this? Do you still have Aijia and the previous emperor in your eyes?" Arbor raised her hand and slapped Empress Dowager Chen's face that was covered in thick makeup. A sense of joy immediately rose in his heart. This damn woman, she had wanted to teach her a lesson for a long time. Chapter 4202. Did she really think that she, Qiao Mu, was a punching bag that would allow her to knead as she pleased, playing the dirty tricks of the palace all day long? Did she think that she, Arbor, was like those older sisters in the imperial harem who were defeated by her? Did she think that she could ruin her reputation and even earn Lian's disdain by using such unconventional tricks? Today, she wanted her to know the consequences of offending her, Arbor. When she thought of this, Arbor's hands didn't stop as she continued to drag the screaming Empress Dowager Chen towards the original small garden. She wanted to make things difficult for her again, right? Could the Prince of Giant Pain not hear the Empress Dowager's screams? But did he dare to provoke the young crown princess? The Empress Dowager and the crown princess didn't go back to the palace to fight, but insisted on fighting in his Prince of Giant Pain's residence. Who would believe him? The old Prince of Giant Pain suddenly felt that his life was full of bitterness and despair. His heart was in turmoil. Hurry and send someone to the palace to see if that brat Mo Cohen managed to invite His Highness, the Crown Prince. Your Highness, your wife has gone crazy. Hurry and stop her. The old Prince of Giant Pain didn't know yet. It was definitely a wise move for him to be terrified and not dare to come over to check. If he dared to interfere, Sir Jojo would definitely beat him up without a second word. Arbor didn't care if this old woman was about to die from being dragged by her all the way. She didn't have any pity for the fairer sex, as she threw her onto the uneven dirt path in the garden. Empress Dowager Chen sat limply on the ground. Her hairpins were all messed up, her hair was disheveled, and her face was completely pale. That servant girl was originally tied to the side with wooden vines by Hu Jinshin. When she saw that the Empress Dowager was being dragged over by the young crown princess like a rag, she was immediately scared out of her wits. She struggled to free her hands that were tied behind her back and shouted sternly, "You, what do you want to do? What are you doing?" Arbor coldly glanced at them. His eyes were cold and indifferent, without the slightest bit of warmth. Such a bone-chilling gaze made Empress Dowager Chen's entire body tremble. Her heart was in a mess, and she had a feeling that today was going to be bad. "Crown Princess, you need to calm down." Empress Dowager Chen still wanted to say something to comfort the scary little Crown Princess. However, Arbor did not allow her to continue. He raised his hand and sprinkled a handful of powder on the three of them. "Enjoy it," she said coldly before pulling He Chen away. Empress Dowager Chen's eyes changed as she looked at young Master Chen, who was crawling towards her while drooling. She finally shouted out in panic, Don't come over! What are you doing? Stop! You stand." Xiao Mu had purposely used a barrier to conceal the area where they were doing their work. This way, as long as she did not move away, no one would be blind enough to come and disturb the three of them. There was a hidden cold light in her eyes. When she returned to the king of Giant Pain's residence with He Chen, they saw the old king of Giant Pain walking over with an uneasy expression. Crown Princess, what instructions does the Empress Dowager have?" Arbor took the tea from the servant and expressionlessly glanced at the king of Giant Pain. "I didn't meet the Empress Dowager at all. King of Giant Pain, it was you who sneakily used the Queen Dowager's name to deliberately lure this crown prince consort here." Xiao Mu's small, solemn face abruptly changed on a whim. Chapter 4203. She slapped the armrest of the old prince of Giant Pain's large carved hardwood chair, causing a neat piece to fall off. The little stoic glared angrily at him with a frosty face. "Prince of Giant Pain, are you trying to pick a quarrel and stir up trouble? Do you want compensation again? Do you know the consequences of deceiving this crown princess?" The old prince of Giant Pain's mouth twitched as he looked at the piece of wood that had fallen to the ground. He hastily bowed and begged for forgiveness, repeatedly claiming that he didn't dare. He kept crying injustice and was just short of cursing and swearing to the heavens and earth. "Royal father, royal father, royal father." Mo Kuan ran in joyously and saw his royal father standing cowardly in front of the little crown princess, gesticulating about who knew what the hell he was talking about. Mo Kuan's eyelid twitched. He heard the little crown princess ask crisply, expressionlessly, "You mean the Queen Dowager really is in your estate?" Yes, it's absolutely true." The old prince of Giant Pain nodded repeatedly and volunteered, "Crown Princess, I can bring you there." "Royal father." Mo Kuan couldn't resist interrupting. "The crown prince is already at our estate's entrance with his people." "What?" The old prince of Giant Pain was startled, but he immediately revealed a joyous expression and hastily strode out the door. Good. Then us father and son will go to the front door to welcome His Highness the Crown Prince." "No need." An indifferent voice appeared at the entrance and blew to the little stoic's side like a gust of wind. Mo Yin grabbed his wife's small hand and sized her up from head to toe. He only sighed in relief after seeing that she was fine. He turned to glance at the Prince of Giant Pain and his son before pulling Arbor's hand and quietly grumbling, "Jojo, why do you come whenever someone comes to find you? There's no need to pay attention to some strange people." The old Prince of Giant Pain rubbed his nose. The Queen Dowager used his Prince of Giant Pain estate's name to send an invitation to the Crown Princess. Then this strange person must be referring to him. The old King of Giant Pain didn't dare to retort back. He could only feel slightly aggrieved in his heart. With a pitiful voice, he retorted, "The Empress Dowager issued an imperial decree. I can't do anything about it." Prince Mo gritted his teeth as he held his wife's hand and asked, "Jojo, did that woman make things difficult for you?" There was no such thing. Not only was there no such thing, she was the one who had turned the tables and given her a taste of her own medicine, making things difficult for her. Thinking of the current situation in the garden, the little crown princess couldn't help but reveal a look of disdain on her cold little face. Mo Yin had been paying attention to her the whole time, and the slight changes on her face naturally couldn't escape her eyes. His Jojo seemed to be in a good mood. "Where's the Empress Dowager?" Mo Yin asked coldly. Today, he was going to make it clear to this old woman that his wife was not someone who could be taught by just any Tom, Dick, or Harry. The old prince of giant pain took it upon himself to lead the way, leading everyone in the direction of the Empress Dowager's bedchamber. "We'll reach the Empress Dowager after passing through this small garden." "Oh, that's right. Don't look at my garden. It seems to be very expensive. In fact, most of the precious flowers inside were sent over by my elder brothers." The Prince of Giant Pain sneaked a glance at Arbor and continued. "Ever since the last time we gave you, the Crown Princess, a series of compensations, life in the entire Prince of Giant Pain estate has taken a nosedive. It's very difficult." Arbor glanced speechlessly at the old Prince of Giant Pain. Chapter 4204. You can't just look at the surface of this garden and big house to see how precious they are. You have to look at their inner qualities. Most of the antiques in my residence, except for those that eldest brother and second brother gave me, which are genuine, the rest are actually fakes. Crown Princess, Your Highness the Crown Prince, I'm really very poor. This fellow's bitter and vengeful gaze made it seem as if Arbor was here to collect debts again. Did she look like someone who wanted to kill them all? Mo Yin's lips twitched without batting an eyelid. "Where's the Empress Dowager's descendant?" "Her bedchamber is just in front." Before the old king of Giant Pain could finish speaking, he seemed to hear a faint, strange sound drifting over from the other side of the flower bed. The little crown princess pulled a long face and instinctively took 2 steps back. Beside her, Hu Shichin turned to look at Mo Yin and revealed a meaningful expression. Mo Yin rolled her eyes at him and reached out to pull his wife to her side. Hugging her, she whispered, "Wife, be careful. There might be something unusual in front." The old king of Giant Pain, Hu Shichin, and Mo Kun, being caught off guard of being fed dog food was really terrible. In their eyes, Prince Mo, who was always showing off dog food, was really a little shameless, especially the old king of Giant Pain, who was fuming with rage. Although his residence wasn't as impregnable as the Imperial Palace, nor was it as strictly managed as Prince Kang's residence, at least it was still passable. What did he mean by there was something unusual? How could there be something unusual? Unusual? The old king of Giant Pain's eyes instantly turned round. He suddenly saw that the small garden in front of him seemed to have opened up. In the flower bed in front, there were 3 white figures twisting together in a very frightening posture. One of them suddenly moved his body and turned his face around. When the old king of Giant Pain saw that face, he was so frightened that he fell to the ground on his butt. He kicked his legs and screamed, "I'm blind! I'm blind!" Arbor flipped her hand and took out 2 silver needles. "Here." The old king of Giant Pain looked at her in shock. Was she asking him to stab himself in the eyes? Damn it, this girl was too ruthless. How dare he make the Empress Dowager look like this? The king of Giant Pain had just shivered when he heard the young crown princess's cold and stern voice. "How dare you? How dare you do such a despicable thing in broad daylight?" Prince Mo reacted quickly as well. Although he had never heard his wife say that she would do this, he immediately got into character and started cooperating with her. His face sank, and he said angrily, "Are they all dead? Hurry up and separate them." The disgusting appearance of these 3 people was simply an eyesore. The young crown princess stared coldly at the disheveled woman and sneered. "What are you waiting for? Such a woman who tarnished the previous emperor's reputation naturally has to be executed immediately." Emolian then said, "Someone give her 3 feet of white silk." Everyone, wasn't it a little too fast for the 2 of them to sing and brag? Even if the county magistrate was trying a case, shouldn't he at least have a first trial? "You guys, do you have to deal with the Empress Dowager so quickly and strangely?" Arbor glanced sideways and saw Ao Yi jump up with the white silk in his hands. Her eyes immediately twitched. A strange thought flashed through her mind. Could it be that Ao Yi carried several strands of white silk with him in his inner world to deal with such sudden situations at any time? Empress Dowager Chen looked at the 2 men in black walking over quickly. and her pupils suddenly shrank. Let's adjust the time tomorrow. It's estimated to be 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Chapter 4205. Crown Prince. Empress Dowager Qin's powdered old face was ruined by the tears and snot flowing down her face. She was so angry that she was trembling. She pointed a trembling finger at the little crown princess. It's her. She framed Ijia. It's her. You cannot ask for the reason. Empress Dowager Qin looked in horror at the white silk around her neck and shouted, "Stop! Stop!" Ijia was dragged out of her bedroom by the crown princess and thrown here. This bitch planned this, Under the crown prince's gaze, Ao Yi slapped Empress Dowager Qin's mouth without hesitation. The two guards took the white silk from Ao Yi's hand and immediately wrapped it around her neck. They pulled the two ends and tightened it without any explanation. Arbor looked coldly at the Empress Dowager, who was kneeling there with a face full of panic. At this time, this woman didn't have any of her usual graceful and luxurious appearance. She was completely a dirty beggar woman with a sad face from crying. When did I go to your bedroom? Arbor's voice was cold. In Empress Dowager Qin's ears, it was especially heartless. You're the one who is shameless. You messed around with your Chun family's smelly bug, and now you dare to open your mouth? Arbor looked coldly at her. Empress Dowager Chun was already choked by the white silk, and she couldn't speak. Her old face turned purple. Suddenly, she heard a servant anxiously announce, "Grand Concubine Fong has arrived. Left Prime Minister Chun Chaoji requests an audience." Grand Concubine Fong and Chun Chaoji hurried over. When they saw the scene in the garden, their expressions changed. "Stop!" Grand Concubine Fong shouted in shock. A person immediately jumped out from behind her and threw a dart at the Empress Dowager. It hit the white silk in the middle and directly cut it in half. The two guards each held a broken piece of the white silk and suddenly took a step back. Grand Concubine Fong quickly pushed aside the guards in front of her and ran to Empress Dowager Chun. She took a silk robe from a maid and wrapped it around Empress Dowager Chun, who was sitting on the ground in a mess. Empress Dowager Chun grabbed old Concubine Fong's hand in tears. "Old Concubine, are you here to save me? What the hell is going on?" Old Concubine Fong hurriedly turned to look in the direction of Crown Prince. "Crown Prince, Empress Dowager is the Emperor's father and your grandmother. How can you?" The little stoic expressionlessly interrupted her. "Grand Consort Fong, we don't blame you for going up to cause trouble without knowing the reason. However, it's best that you don't interfere in this matter, lest you attract trouble for no reason." You, Grand Concubine Fong, was amused by this expressionless crown princess. Look at what he said. He was really not courteous at all. The Empress Dowager shamelessly ruined the reputation of the imperial harem, messing around with her grandnephew in broad daylight. The crown prince said with a cold expression, "I'm giving her a death sentence for her sake." Old Concubine Fong's expression suddenly changed. She lowered her head to look at the Empress Dowager, who was wrapped in a silk robe and shivering. Her eyes showed some worry. She had long advised this old sister not to insist on becoming enemies with the crown prince and crown princess. However, she just didn't listen. Wasn't this a disaster? Even she didn't know what to do next. Chun Chaoji hastily stepped forward and cupped his hands, saying, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, Crown Princess, there must be something fishy about this matter. How is it possible for Her Majesty the Empress Dowager?" Chun Chaoji's face was pale as he looked at that intoxicated young man who was forced to kneel on the side, but still continued to make indecent movements. Chapter 4206. Of course, he recognized this Chun family disciple. But the problem was, no matter how bad the Empress Dowager was, why would she do such a thing with a grandnephew from Side Branch? Moreover, it was in broad daylight. Was she that lonely? She must have been wronged. Although Chun Chaoji felt that the Empress Dowager was wronged, he couldn't find any evidence to prove that the Empress Dowager was indeed wronged. Thus, he could only mumble, Your Highness Crown Princess." Mo Yin raised his hand and coldly said, "Left Prime Minister, you don't need to quibble for her. This matter concerns the reputation of the royal family. I believe that the Prime Minister must have made a choice. Choice. Chen Chaoji's heart thumped heavily. Empress Dowager Chen knelt there and saw a trace of hesitation and confusion on the face of the Prime Minister's nephew. She couldn't help but angrily shout, "No, it's not like what you said. Why aren't you slapping him awake? Slap him awake." Empress Dowager Chen shouted at the two Chun family manservants like a madwoman. When the two Chan family disciples saw this, they wished that they could poke their eyes out and pretend that they didn't see anything. They fearfully took a few steps forward, and under the urging of Empress Dowager Chen's cold gaze, they heavily slapped the Chun family's side branch grandnephew's face. The man woke up with a start, only to hear a sharp yell from the front. "Chun Xian, tell me honestly, who did you come to the garden to see?" Chun Xian's face was blank, and he hurriedly said the words that he had already silently repeated hundreds of times. "This lowly one is here to see the Crown Princess." "The Crown Princess arranged for this lowly one to meet here," Arbor sneered. Empress Dowager Chun hurriedly crawled forward and glared at Mo Lien with a twisted face. "Did you hear that? Listen, Mo Lien ruthlessly kicked her to the ground, causing her to spit out a mouthful of blood with a wah. You. Empress Dowager Chen's expression changed. She didn't expect that Mo Lien wouldn't care about her face at all. The little crown princess glanced at Chun Xian, who was trembling on the ground, with a look of disdain. Then, she threw herself into Mo Lien's arms. The latter naturally reached out and hugged her, raising his hand to caress the back of her head. Arbor turned his little head and stared at Empress Dowager Chun as if he was looking at a corpse. After a while, he said sarcastically, "You're crazy." "I'm not as crazy as the Empress Dowager, who would come to an unfamiliar giant pain mansion for a rendezvous for no reason. Furthermore, the Empress Dowager wants to frame this crown princess. Can you please find a more decent man?" The little crown princess did not hide the disdain on her face. She raised her head and reached out to grab Mo Lien's chin. She lifted it up slightly and turned to look at the Empress Dowager sarcastically. "Am I crazy? I don't want my husband, who is like a flower, and I want this broken thing beside you." The flower-like husband silently lowered his eyes, blinked, and glanced at his little wife. "It's you, Empress Dowager. You're already so old. You've been buried deep in the palace all day, so you've already withered. That's why you're so desperate and can pull in any kind of ghost for nourishment." "Huh?" Chen Chaoji trembled. He felt that the little crown princess's words were extremely vicious, but he couldn't find any words to refute it. "How did the Chun family produce a woman like you?" The little crown princess said in a cold voice, a cold light flashing in her eyes. Unwilling to be left out. So shameless. "Were you guys still standing there for? Send her on her way." No. I want to see who dares to stop me." Chapter 4207. The little stoic shouted coldly, and her chilly gaze circled around before landing on Grand Consort Fong's face. Grand Consort Fong only felt her body tremble slightly, and she hastily blocked Queen Dowager Chun with her arms. She earnestly advised, "Crown Princess, the Queen Dowager is indeed in the wrong in this matter. But, she's an old person in the palace after all. It's inevitable that she'll be a bit muddle-headed when she gets older. She didn't think things through and went into a dead end." What nonsense." Arbor coldly gazed at Grand Consort Fong and rudely interrupted her. "Even if the Heavenly Emperor came today, he wouldn't be able to save her." "Do it." "Yes." "Ayo, you simply brought 2 royal guards and personally went forward to twist the white silk." Earlier on, the 2 broken pieces of white silk had been thrown onto the ground by him. Now he had taken out a new piece of it. As expected, his inner world was filled with quite a few pieces of white silk. Chen Chaoji hastily knelt down and kowtowed loudly in front of Prince Mo. "Your Highness the Crown Prince, please quell your anger. Please forgive today's matter on account of the former emperor, on account of my Chun family. It's no use looking at anyone." Crown Prince Mo coldly interrupted Chen Chaoji's words as he gazed at the people behind him with a serene gaze. "Prime Minister Zhua, You brought so many people here today to see such a lively royal scandal. Do you think we should let you all leave like this? Chun Chaoji felt chills all over his body. The group of Chun clan servants behind him were frightened to the point they rolled on the ground, and they repeatedly kowtowed and begged for mercy. They mumbled a mess of, "Your servant didn't see anything," and "Your servant won't say anything." However, Imo Yin's extremely chilly gaze landed on them, as if she was looking at a group of corpses. The Prince of Giant Pain and his son continued to cower on the side, not daring to utter a single word. It wasn't that they were cowardly and afraid of trouble. Their Prince of Giant Pain's estate was truly innocent in this matter. Yet the Queen Dowager insisted on tearing apart the Crown Princess at the Prince of Giant Pain's estate. With the Crown Princess's temper, it was already very polite of her not to behead this old witch on the spot. Now, for the sake of the imperial family, the Chun family should be secretly happy that the Empress Dowager's corpse was left intact. If they continued to cause a ruckus, the Crown Prince, who was soft-hearted, sick, and crazy, would annihilate the entire Chun family. What couldn't he do? He was angry because of the beauty. He was just like his father, stay up late, grabbed one into the white silk, and worked with another guard to tighten it. The Empress Dowager's hands desperately clutched the satin around her neck. She stared at Prince Imo and the little Crown Princess in horror. Her throat made a gurgling sound, and the light in her eyes dimmed bit by bit. Arbor stared at her coldly without any change in his expression. Old concubine Fong was stopped by two guards on one side. She couldn't rush over it all. She could only scream at the top of her lungs, "No, no." Her gaze landed on the young Crown Prince Consort's stern face. For some reason, she couldn't help but shudder when she saw this expression. The two personal guard behind old concubine Fong were naturally stopped by the Crown Prince's people. Just now, they were caught off guard and the white silk was broken. The people of the Night Pavilion were very angry. Naturally, they wouldn't let them go forward to destroy it. Empress Dowager, old concubine Fong cried bitterly. This appearance, the little Crown Princess's faint eyes couldn't help but glance at old concubine Fong's face. In the depths of the palace, was there such a friendship? This old concubine Fong was a good person who valued friendship and righteousness. Chapter 4208. Empress Dowager Chen's head drooped heavily and was placed to the side. Aoyi stepped forward to report. "Reporting to your highness, the Crown Princess and Empress Dowager Chun have been dealt with." Chun Chaoji's entire body couldn't help but tremble slightly, as if this was the first time he had seen this pair of demonic stars. He cast a fearful glance in the direction of the Crown Prince. Prince Imo only glanced at him coldly and then said, "Left Prime Minister." Left Prime Minister Chun Chaoji immediately knelt on the ground in fear and said repeatedly, "Your Highness, this subject didn't see anything today. This subject can swear a blood oath with these servants that we won't dare to say a word about Her Highness the Empress Dowager." Imo Yin looked at him indifferently and said, "Left Prime Minister, yes, old subject is here. This prince sees that your health hasn't been good recently, and you look old. Such a troublesome thing has happened at home. If you really can't do it, you could try your best to ask Imperial Father to remove you from your post and retire early. Wouldn't that be wonderful?" Imo Yin's gaze was indifferent as he spoke, without the slightest ripple. But in Chun Chaoji's ears, it was no less than a shocking wave. So, the Crown Prince was forcing him to resign on his own accord? The Crown Prince's meaning couldn't be more obvious. If you leave by yourself now, you can still get a good reputation and retire well in your hometown. If this prince makes a move, Chun Chaoji snot and tears flowed freely. His heart felt as bitter as if he had swallowed coptis. He hurriedly knelt and said, "This subject will consider it carefully." Prince Imo nodded indifferently and then didn't look at him anymore. Grand Concubine Fong was still silently crying beside Her Highness the Empress Dowager's corpse. Prince Imo glanced at her and said indifferently, "Her Highness the Empress Dowager is unrestrained and unethical. She can't enter the imperial mausoleum of Mount Heaven Saint. As for her funeral, grand concubine can think about it. After saying that, he took his wife's small hand and turned around to walk out. Grand concubine Fong felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She was so angry that she couldn't help but sway. Your Highness the Crown Prince, death is like an extinguished lamp. Even if the Empress Dowager and the Crown Princess had many grudges before, now that she is dead, shouldn't she enjoy the glory that belongs to her? Lien abruptly turned her head, her phoenix eyes revealing a terrifying storm. Old concubine Fong was startled by his deep and terrifying gaze. She couldn't help but take 2 steps back. If it wasn't for the sake of the royal family's reputation, I wouldn't have done it. Today, we should cut her into 1,000 pieces. Mo Lien roared angrily. Now that we've left her with an intact corpse, what's there to be dissatisfied about? What was this old witch trying to do? He wanted to completely destroy his JoJo. Was there really such a disgusting woman in the world? There was no deep hatred between the two of them. So why did they have to do such a disgusting thing? Old concubine Fong was frightened by the crown prince's ferocious appearance. She took a few steps back and stammered. Your Highness? You don't know what's good for you. Emolian said angrily. Come, throw this evil woman out of the imperial city and burn her. Old concubine Fong was so scared that she couldn't help but fall to the ground. She reacted in a second and hurriedly begged for mercy. Your Highness, you can't do this. You can't. Emolian didn't listen to her and threw a glance at Aoyi. Aoyi immediately took the order and led his men forward. They wrapped the old woman's corpse in a white silk cloth, jumped up the eaves, and disappeared without a trace. Old concubine Fong couldn't help but burst into tears. She seemed to be caught unprepared. Chapter 4209. As for Chen Qianhe, that lass, who was kneeling on the side, she was already trembling all over in fright. How would she dare to utter a single word? Your Highness, how should we deal with the two of them? When Chen Qianhe heard someone mention them, he hurriedly waved his hands and shouted, It has nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me. It was Her Highness the Empress Dowager who summoned me here, saying that there's something good for me to take advantage of. How would he have known that this good thing would suddenly become a fatal disaster? Mo Yin scoffed coldly. She had never seen such a brainless person. He didn't even consider that Empress Dowager Chun had him come over to slander the crown princess. Whether this matter succeeded or not, it didn't seem to benefit him. He only had himself to blame. Since he was willing to board Empress Dowager Chen's lousy ship today, he was certain that he would lose his life. Mo Yin didn't feel like wasting any more words with him. She directly waved her hand and said, Does an imperial father have a barrel of bliss? Throw it in. Yes. What barrel of bliss? Chen Qianhe's face instantly paled in fright, scrambling to crawl in Chen Chaoji's direction. Uncle, save me. Chen Chaoji's old face darkened as he glared at him. When he saw him pouncing over, he dodged to the side without hesitation. The Chen family could be considered to have been destroyed in their hands. Save him, right now. He hated that he couldn't eat his flesh and bones. So how could he save him? After that last Chen Qianhe was dragged away, Chen Chaoji's expression darkened as he was also taken away by the Night Pavilion to sign the heavenly Dao Blood Oath. Mo Yin pulled his wife's small hand and turned to the king of Giant Pain and his son, who were still pretending to be quails. King of Giant Pain. Ah, here. The old king of Giant Pain hurriedly came before the young couple and smiled apologetically. Crown Prince, don't worry. No one in my King of Giant Pain estate dares to say a word about today's matter. In reality, the servants of the King of Giant Pain estate had already been dispersed by him. Other than him, Kuan-Er, and a few personal guards, there really wasn't anyone else who saw this farce. What kind of joke was this, the old King of Giant Pain thought? He clearly knew that the Empress Dowager Giant Pain was tearing the crown princess apart in her estate. How could he be so stupid as to let people come and watch? What good could come out of watching? According to his past experience, none of the people who surrounded the pair of ominous stars would have a good ending. For example, Chun Chaoji today. The old king of Giant Pain chuckled with a brilliant smile on his face. Crown Prince, you can rest assured. Leave the matters here to me. The Crown Prince of Giant Pain, Mo Kuan, couldn't help but cover his face. He always felt that the flattering smile on his old father's face was very painful to the eyes. Mo Lien nodded and did not say anything more to King Giant Pain. He pulled his wife towards the entrance of King Giant Pain's mansion. The old King of Giant Pain and his son sent the young couple off all the way to the door. The joyful smile on their faces could not be concealed. Get the hell out of here. The young crown princess read these words from the old King of Giant Pain's eyes and looked at him expressionlessly. King Giant Pain, I see that the purple jade ink orchid in your courtyard is not bad. The old King of Giant Pain's heart thumped heavily, and he hurriedly revealed an innocent old face. Not at all, not at all. Crown Princess, the exotic flowers and herbs in my estate are not even half as many as in Prince Kang's estate. Oh, the old King of Giant Pain's eyes twitched. He turned around and said, Come, hurry and bring the purple jade ink orchid out for the Crown Princess. Not long after, a servant hurriedly brought over a pot of purple jade ink orchid. The young Crown Princess reached out to hug the flower pot and expressionlessly looked at the old King of Giant Pain. Chapter 42:10. She casually tossed 2 storage talismans to the old Prince of Giant Pain. A gift in return. She wasn't taking his precious flowers for free. She was exchanging them for something else. The old Prince of Giant Pain was taken aback. He stared blankly at the back of the little crown princess as she boarded the carriage. He was already mentally prepared to be robbed by the bandit crown princess. Why was it so strange today? Dad, Mo Kuan reached out excitedly. I heard that the storage talismans drawn by the crown princess are extremely spacious and can store living things. Give me one, Dad. The old Prince of Giant Pain casually stuffed the 2 storage talismans into his pocket before turning to leave. Mo Kuan, was he his biological father? Arbor looked at the pot of flowers for a while before suddenly turning to hand it to Mo Lien. For you, Ji Chen, who was currently leaning against a corner of the carriage and drinking wine, nearly spat out her wine when she saw this. She teased, Yo, my flower-like husband. Arbor nodded his small head. Yes, puffed. Ji Chen couldn't resist bursting into laughter. Mo Lien also patted her head in amusement before taking the pot of flowers and putting it away in her inner world. Jojo, you're so nice. Arbor's eyes curved as he grabbed his hand and asked, Will that woman's matter cause you trouble? What trouble can there be? Prince Mo harumphed. At most, he would be dragged to the Emperor's study and reprimanded. She was already dead. If she became that old woman, would the Emperor fly into a rage out of humiliation and hang his biological son up to give him a beating? An hour later, at the Emperor's study. Mom, Prince Mo dashed out and hastily threw himself behind by Wuxia. The White Queen hastily shielded her child and glared at Mo Lusheng, who ran out of the study with a whip. She asked vigilantly, What are you doing? Mom, royal father is going to beat husband. The little stoic angrily pushed Mo Lien behind her, glaring at Mo Lusheng with a shared hatred for a common enemy with the White Queen. Mo Lusheng, this damned brat, was getting more and more promising. He was wondering why he had obediently come here to receive his punishment today. It turned out that he had asked his wife to go and get reinforcements. The Empress Dowager did such a shameless thing. Why did you hit your son? Empress Bai said angrily. It wasn't your son who asked her to do it. Mo Lusheng looked at his wife speechlessly and pointed at Mo Lien and Arbor. It would be strange if this matter had nothing to do with them. No matter how desperate the Empress Dowager was, it was impossible for her to go to Giant Pain Mansion and do such a thing in broad daylight. Arbor said angrily, Mother, Imperial Father is being unreasonable. This matter clearly has nothing to do with my husband. That's right. The White Empress protected her son and glared at Mo Lusheng in annoyance. Don't bother my son with such nonsense in the future. They didn't have eyes, yet they insisted on provoking us. They deserve to die. The Empress snorted. She had long sent people to Giant Pain Mansion to investigate this matter in detail. So how could there be anything she didn't know? The Empress Dowager was in the wrong, but the two of them actually scared Grand Consort Fong into falling ill. The White Empress was taken aback and then snorted. It must be because she couldn't take the scare. The young couple nodded at the same time, expressing their great agreement with their mother's words. The Emperor was instantly angered into laughter. Just as he was about to roar at this pair of treasures, he suddenly saw a eunuch hurrying over and repeatedly kneeling. Your Majesty, Lord Preceptor of the State has sent an urgent report. What happened? The Emperor took the letter the eunuch presented and opened it to read. His expression changed slightly. Chapter 42:11. Prince Imo poked his head out from behind the White Queen and glanced at the letter in his father's hand. What kind of message could that state preceptor send back? He was probably thinking about his wife again, right? What is it? The queen glanced suspiciously at the letter in Mo Liuxing's hand. Mo Liuxing didn't hide it from her and directly handed the letter over. Bai Wuxiao swept a glance over it and harumphed. Truly absurd. Since the Sea of Forgetfulness's dragon clan wants to see their daughter-in-law, why didn't they come to receive her themselves? They actually detained the state preceptor now and even sent a letter to threaten him? What does this mean? Arbor was startled and looked at the letter in the White Queen's hand. The queen turned and handed the letter to Arbor. Jojo, just take a look. You don't need to pay attention to this. What hasn't the state preceptor seen before? How could he be detained so easily this time? Seeing that his wife was suspicious, Mo Liuxing couldn't help but defend the state preceptor. After all, he's in the sea. No matter how capable the state preceptor is, it's probably hard to deal with some things in the sea. Besides, the Dragon Clan has many clansmen, and the state preceptor only brought several dozen people on this trip. If the other party insists on detaining them, there's nothing we can do. Bai Wuxiao harumphed. In short, my daughter-in-law isn't going anywhere. She has to rush over just because the Sea of Forgetfulness's Dragon Clan wants to see her. What kind of logic is that? Mo Yin nodded, very much agreeing with her mother's words. If they want to see my wife, then let them send someone to invite her themselves. Not only did they have to invite her, they had to invite her loudly and announce it to the whole world. His chow wasn't a little stray cat on the roadside that anyone could pick up and bring home. Mo Liuxing speechlessly looked at his wife and son's identical disdainful expression and facepalmed. All right, then send a letter back to them and let the Dragon Clan's clansmen consider it themselves. The Crown Prince nodded and pulled his wifey's hand over. He lowered his head to glance at the little stoic. Jojo, if you don't want to go, no one can force you. Xiao Mu raised her head to look at him, her lips curling up as she replied in a gentle voice, I know. Bai Wuxiao chuckled and pulled the child with one hand and his daughter-in-law with the other. Little Tang Yuan's wife, it's about time. Let the three of us go and have a meal. Mo Liuxing hurriedly took a few steps forward and called out aggrievedly. Wuxia, Mo Yin smiled. Mother, what about father? Your father? He's busy with government affairs. Let him eat by himself. Wife. Mo Liuxing raised his feet and followed. How could he be willing to fall behind? He was wrong, okay? I want him my son next time. At the very least, he had to find a time when Wuxia wasn't around to beat up that little bastard. Otherwise, wouldn't he be asking for trouble? Bai Wuxiao pursed her lips in amusement and winked at her son, silently implying, Son, don't be afraid. Look at how obedient your father is in your mother's hands. Mo Yin's phoenix eyes curved slightly, and she nodded with a smile. The family of four chased each other to the dining hall and had a rather sumptuous meal. Afterwards, the Crown Prince followed the Emperor to the study to discuss matters. Queen Bai pulled her daughter-in-law to chat about their matters in the lower star domain. When the Crown Prince came to pick them up later, he looked at his mother's smiling face and asked curiously, Mother, how was your chat with Jojo? It was very good. Queen Bai didn't understand why her son asked this. Chapter 42:12. Mo Yin couldn't help but want to laugh. He suppressed his smile and tugged at his wifey's hand. Jojo, what were you talking about with Mother this afternoon? We were talking about you. Arbor's eyes sparkled as she said, You were so cute when you were young. It couldn't be weren't they just chatting? Could it be that Mother was the only one chatting? Mother told him everything that happened before he was 3 years old? Lien instantly felt unwell. What good things could happen before he was 3 years old? Wasn't it eating, drinking, and pooping everywhere, apui? Lien pulled his wifey and fled from Mother's place. He pinched his wifey's little face. Jojo, forget everything Mother said before. That won't do. Xiaomu hugged him and climbed up his waist. I've remembered everything that Royal Mother told me. I didn't expect you to be so fun when you were young. No wonder people call you little glutinous dumpling. Lien, where was his authority? The next day, Arbor went to the Star region to visit Duanmu. Her expression was especially serious. Qi Xianxian saw that she pursed her lips and didn't say anything. Her heart couldn't help but beat wildly. Jojo, is it especially serious? Xiao Mu's small stoic face was taut. She abruptly flipped her wrist, and a glistening green fruit with small hairs on it appeared in her palm. The fruit was only half the size of a palm. It looked sparkling and translucent, and a strange fragrance wafted over. When Qi Xianxian smelled the aroma, her saliva almost dripped out. Her eyes widened as she said, Look, it looks delicious. Little Fatty's mouth twitched, and he reached out to tug at her. Why was this child so easily tempted by good food? Jojo, what is this? Lu Yu, Jiang Shaoxin, Mata, and the rest also surrounded her and looked curiously at the fruit in her hand. Holy fruit, Arbor said expressionlessly, his large eyes glaring fiercely at Duanmu. Duanmu smiled bitterly and nodded at her. Yes, I was too presumptuous. I still have to ask Jojo first. Qi Xianxian hurriedly nodded. It's good that you admit your mistake. Jojo, is this the fruit of the little tree? Mata asked with a smile. Arbor nodded and threw the fruit into Duanmu hands. Fortunately, the second sacred fruit that the small tree bore had already taken shape in the divine territory. Otherwise, Duanmu would have to use the medicinal power to control his wounds and wait for a while. Now, there were 4 or 5 small fruits hanging on the branches of the little tree. It seemed that as long as the star field was filled with divine power, it would not be a problem to obtain more saint fruits in the future. If a god domain was transformed into a saint domain, perhaps the holy fruits could be endless as well. Perhaps she could first feed the little tree with the holy stone ores that the venerable peach blossom immortal and the others had excavated. While Arbor was deep in thought, Duanmu had already eaten the sacred fruit. Everyone looked at him eagerly and could not help but ask, How do you feel? Is it delicious? Qi Xuanchuan's question made everyone laugh. This child only cared about whether it was delicious or not. How much was she drooling? Duanmu slowly raised his hand. Everyone could clearly see that the rotting wound on his wrist was gradually disappearing in a matter of seconds. Little Fatty exclaimed happily, Quick, look at the wound. This sacred fruit is really magical. Duanmu was also rather excited. Chapter 42:13. She hurriedly looked up at Arbor and called out softly, Jojo. Arbor nodded. I'll get Little Tree to send you to the island. Focus on your advancement and don't think about anything else. Duanmu nodded and disappeared in front of them. Qi Xianxian giggled and said, Jojo, Duanmu ate the holy fruit. Can he still advance? Yes. Arbor thought for a moment and said softly, If there are no accidents, he should be able to break through to the godly state. Everyone's eyes widened, revealing a shocked expression. Was the holy fruit so effective? Duanmu could break through to the godly state with just one holy fruit? Does that mean Duanmu will soon enter the 5 spirits reincarnation? Arbor grunted. When he finishes advancing, we'll send him out of the star sector. The 5 spirits reincarnation should not be a big problem for Duanmu. As long as he entered the godly state and stabilized his cultivation, the 5 spirits reincarnation was just a formality. Everyone chatted for a while more before Arbor sent them off to play. When she left the star sector, she saw Prince Immo step through the door and smile at her. Jojo, father received a message from the Sea of Forgetfulness's dragon clan early this morning. With that, he handed a jade talisman to Arbor. Arbor touched the jade talisman and saw a message on it. To the Emperor of the Divine Prefecture, the Dragon Clan has sent people to the Divine Prefecture's imperial capital, Dragon Flame City. The transportation talisman array will arrive in a few days. We'll talk then. Arbor raised his eyebrows and said non-committally, "Oh." His attitude was cold, as if it had nothing to do with him whether they came or not. Yin knew that she had a knot in her heart about the Dragon Clan. He patted her head and said softly, "Let's listen to what they have to say." Arbor glanced at him. "We have nothing to do today. Let's go to the hot spring at Half Moon Cliff's splendid villa." "Sure." Yin nodded and smiled. "Your Highness." Xiao Yi jumped in from outside the high wall and said with a gloomy expression, "Something happened, Your Highness." Yin raised her eyebrows slightly. "What happened, Your Highness?" Xiao Yi cupped his hands and said, "The people of Medicine King Island are carrying Sir He Wen's corpse and making a ruckus at the entrance of the palace. She's clamoring to find the crown princess and pay with her life." Arbor was taken aback. Sir He Wen passed away? What was going on? When they parted ways in Joe City, He Wen and Ni Hanji were still fine. Why did Sir He Wen die in less than 2 days? Yin also frowned. "What's going on? I've already sent people to investigate, but I haven't found out the details yet." Xiao Yi said, "Your Highness, we can't let them make a ruckus outside the palace gate. Should we chase them away?" Yin sneered. "One of their own is dead. Why are they looking for my crown princess? Let's go and take a look." Arbor looked puzzled. Sir He Wen had died inexplicably, and the people of Medicine King Island were looking for her. No matter how she looked at it, there was something fishy about this matter. He Wen's personality had always been peaceful, and he treated people very well. Arbor also couldn't figure out who would have wronged him. Yin lowered her head and glanced at her. "You don't have to care about these things." "I'm fine." Arbor raised her hand and shook Missouri Lien's hand. She also had doubts in her heart, so she naturally wanted to go out and see what was going on. Moreover, the people of Medicine King Island had already come to pick on her. If she shrank back and didn't accept the challenge, wouldn't it make people think that she had a guilty conscience and didn't dare to meet people? What a joke. Chapter 42:14. Yin also thought of this point. She exchanged a glance with Arbor and said with a nod, "All right, I'll have someone make the arrangements." At the same time, Ni Hanji was kneeling beside His Excellency He Wen's corpse, her head drooping as she secretly wept. Several hundred Medicine King Island disciples around her were clamoring loudly to have her come out. Have her come out to see us. She sent people to kill His Excellency He Wen. What? She dares to do it, but doesn't dare to admit it. Don't think that you'll be fine if you hide in the palace and don't see anyone. Our Medicine King Island isn't that easy to bully, right? Have her come out. Come out. The crowd was surging with emotions. Many common people only dared to hide in the corners of the street far away, secretly peeping at the scene. Medicine King Island made such a big fuss by directly carrying His Excellency He Wen's corpse to the palace gates. This incident alarmed both inside and outside the imperial court in less than an hour. People like the king of Giant Pain naturally wouldn't go to watch the little crown princess's commotion, but there really weren't a small number of people who ran over to watch because they had nothing better to do. Unlike the common people, those skilled and bold cultivators either jumped onto the nearby eaves or simply stood behind Medicine King Island's group to take a closer look. What do you guys think is going on here? I don't know. We also went last time in Joe City. The crown princess did indeed attack Great Master He Wen's disciple, Miss Ni Hanji. But in the end, after His Excellency He Wen appeared, the crown princess let them go. From what those people from Medicine King Island are saying, the crown princess flew into a rage out of humiliation after the incident and still didn't give up sending people to make trouble for Miss Ni. His Excellency He Wen was impatient to save his disciple and was heavily injured by several masked men. He died not long after. That's truly tragic. I heard he was slashed 17 to 18 times consecutively. Even if he was a cultivator, he wouldn't be able to withstand this kind of attack. This person described it vividly, as if he was present at the scene. Everyone immediately filled in a series of scenarios in their minds, describing the little stoic as a narrow-minded and extremely vicious person. The few people who were spreading the rumors were still talking in the crowd when they suddenly felt a chill on their necks. When he looked again, he saw that he had been lifted up by someone and was being carried towards the palace gate. The few of them screamed at the same time. In the blink of an eye, a group of purple forest guards had thrown him in front of the people from Medicine King Island. And Hanji, who was kneeling on the ground with her head bowed, was startled. She instinctively took a step back and glared angrily at one of the purple forest guards. "What are you trying to do?" The disciples of Medicine King Island flew into a rage. Several of them drew their swords from their waists. "Your Highness, the crown princess has arrived." As the palace door opened, Yin and Arbor walked out hand in hand. No one could see any hint of panic on the little crown princess face. From beginning to end, there was only an indifferent stoic face, and her watery eyes swept over everyone. The few people who were seen by her clear eyes immediately felt a sense of inferiority. It was as if they were merely clowns jumping around like bedbugs and grasshoppers jumping around in front of the palace gate. Under this kind of dazzling light, everyone was at a loss for what to do. Standing at the very front of Medicine King Island's group was a young man in flowing white clothes. His long hair was combed meticulously, and his expression was very solemn and dignified. "Your Highness, Crown Princess, this is Medicine King Island's young island master, Sir Wei Su." Chapter 42:15. Aoi took a few steps forward and introduced this young master in a deep voice, because it was obvious that the little crown princess did not know this person at all. Arbor sized him up and saw that although this person was young, his face was cold and solemn, as if someone owed him 108,000 taels of silver. He looked dignified but old-fashioned. It seemed that his temperament was also very rigid. Arbor gave a fair evaluation in his heart. His gaze moved elsewhere and landed on Hanji, who was kneeling on the ground and crying. Oh, it had only been a few days, but this Hanji looked much more haggard. Her pair of lively big eyes were now sunken. Her hands clutched the hem of her clothes tightly as she knelt beside He-Won, tears still falling from her eyes. Miss Nee's current crying appearance was obviously much better than a few days ago when she was baring her fangs and brandishing her claws in Joe City. Just by looking at how many people around her were looking at her with sympathy and pity, one could see how pitiful this Miss I was at this moment. Compared to the evil little crown princess, this Miss I was obviously much more pitiful. Wei Su bowed to Yin and Arbor and went straight to the point. "This Wei is here to discuss the matter of our island's great consecrator, He-Won." Yin saw that this person was well-mannered and had a decent attitude. She said faintly, "After we parted in Joe City, we husband and wife have not met with your island's great consecrator." And Hanji suddenly raised her head and suppressed a trace of anger. "Of course you didn't come to find trouble with us. Isn't it the same for people of your status to send people to find trouble with us? Those black-clothed youths who came to kill me were dressed like them." And Hanji's face was full of anger as she pointed at Aoi and the others. The latter looked innocently at the people of Medicine King Island and couldn't help but laugh. "Miss I, you're too funny. What can this attire mean? You Medicine King Island people can also wear this kind of black clothes if you want to change your clothes." And Hanji said coldly, "The crown princess says one thing, but behind her back, she's saying something else. If it's not her, who else can go against us? Who would be so persistent as to send people to kill me? It's all because I offended her back in Joe City." And Hanji said in a tearful voice, "At first, she had no choice but to let me go because of my master, He-Won. The more he thought about it, the more unhappy he felt. That's why he secretly sent people to surround and intercept us. Master died to protect me. The murderer must pay with his life. A life for a life. A life for a life." The disciples of the Medicine King Island roared in agitation. Their young faces were filled with indignant anger. Arbor turned his head and glanced at them. His cold gaze fell on Wei Su. After a while, he said, "Everyone on Medicine King Island has no problem with their intelligence, right?" The little crown princess's voice was not loud, but it was clearly heard by everyone present. Everyone couldn't help but be slightly stunned. "You're saying that I sent the purple forest guard to kill someone? Where's the evidence?" Arbor looked at them coldly. "Just based on Enai Hanji's mouth? Then can I also say that Sir Hewan was killed by Enai Hanji?" Enai Hanji's expression changed, and her eyes turned red. Chapter 42:16. An ominous glint blossomed from the depths of her bloodshot eyes as she abruptly glared at Xiao Mu. She shrieked, "Xiao Mu, you're so vicious." "I've never seen such a vicious person in my life," Enai Hanji shrieked. "How can you slander others like this?" Arbor's cold eyes scanned her body. Suddenly, she said calmly, "Originally, I was just like you, speaking as soon as I opened my mouth. But now, I'm really going to suspect you?" A person's first reaction of guilt and fear was the most realistic. Just now, when she said, "Enai Hanji killed Sir Hewan," Enai Hanji's expression changed abruptly. It was as if she would die from fear in an instant. It was too realistic, too realistic. But was it just a possibility? Enai Hanji was Sir Hewan's only disciple. Hewan had always valued and loved her. For Enai Hanji's sake, he had not hesitated to bear the punishment himself in Jiaowei City and stood up to ask the little crown princess to let Enai Hanji go. Logically speaking, Enai Hanji should be respectful to her master. She could not have done such a thing, unless something had happened between them. Wei Su's handsome face was as dark as water. He turned to Arbor and said coldly, "Crown Princess, you must have proof before you speak. You slandered Junior Sister and I like this. Do you think the people of Medicine King Island can be bullied by others?" Arbor glanced at the man coldly. "You also know that you must have proof before you speak? Then why did you carry Sir Hewan's corpse and cause a ruckus in front of the palace without proof? Also, you sent people to mix in with the crowd and spread rumors. Do you think this crown princess has a good temperament and can accept everything?" Wei Su's face darkened. "Who sent people to spread the rumors?" Aoyi stepped forward and kicked a hooligan on the ground. "Then we'll have to ask the person who spread the rumors." With that, he gave a look, and the purple forest guards went forward to search the hooligans. They each found a small bag of spirit coins. The bags were of the same design and had the same weight of spirit coins. It was obvious that they were given to them by the same person. Wei Su's expression instantly turned extremely ugly. "Who paid you to come here and spread rumors?" The thugs begged for mercy, but they didn't know who gave them the money. Everyone said that when the man appeared, he was wearing a bamboo hat, gave them a bag of spirit coins, and asked them to say a few words in the crowd. What else was there to be unclear about? Sure enough, someone had secretly arranged this, bribing these idlers to come to the palace gates and spread rumors. "Enai Hanji, are you that bamboo hat man?" Arbor coldly glanced at her, taking in her exceptionally pale complexion. This person's guilty expression was too obvious. Enai Hanji's face turned angry as she snapped, "You've wronged me." "Wrongly accused?" Xiao Mu gazed coldly at Enai Hanji and asked, "Do you think that no one will know what you've done in secret?" Enai Hanji's expression changed abruptly. Her hands tightly clenched the corner of her skirt. What do you mean by that?" The spirit summoning charm was disrespectful to the dead. Arbor naturally didn't want to use it on Sir Hewan. Arbor had another method that could quickly investigate the truth. She cast a thought-provoking glance at Enai Hanji. "Have you heard of time reversal?" Enai Hanji's heart pounded. She had a feeling that the situation was about to spiral out of control. Chapter 42:17. How could it be like this? Things shouldn't have developed like this. Why did this matter take a turn for the worse when it came to the young crown princess? Enai Hanji's gaze was a bit panicked and uneasy. She glanced at Arbor and bit her lip before saying coldly, "I've truly never seen someone as malicious as you. You did such a vicious thing yourself. Yet, yet you still wrongly accuse others. The little stoic raised her hand and was about to throw out a dictum talisman. However, the latter immediately shrunk back in fright and scrambled behind the young man. She cried out in alarm, "Senior Brother Wei Su, Senior Brother Wei Su, save me. She wants to kill me, to silence me, to silence me." Wei Su gazed icily at the young crown princess and raised his hand to block an eye Hanji. He said gravely, "Crown princess, the matter hasn't been explained clearly yet. Isn't it inappropriate for you to act rashly like this?" Arbor was simply amused by this inflexible young man. He put away the dictum talisman and said coldly, "This is a dictum talisman to make her speak the truth. I didn't want to kill her." Wei Su frowned non-committally, and his expression contained a bit of distrust. He straightened his body and blocked an eye Hanji's path like this. At this time, Qi Xianxian, the little fatty, and the others stealthily ran out from the star domain and blended into the crowd. When they heard Arbor's words, they couldn't resist jeering and sneering. "Oh, look at this Miss and I. Is she that scared? It can't be that she really did something shameful, right? That's right. If she doesn't have a guilty conscience, why would she fear the dictum talisman test?" And Ai Hanji's face was livid, and her eyes kept darting around. She shouted angrily, Who? Who is hiding in the crowd? Come out and speak if you have the guts." Qi Xianxian harumphed and quickly walked out of the crowd. "Come out and speak then. Do you think I don't dare?" And Ai Hanji stared at Xianxian coldly. She bit her lip and leaned against Wei Su's leg. "Senior Brother Wei Su, you can't believe their words. It's Arbor. Arbor sent people to kill my master. It's her. Miss and I, don't be so presumptuous as to slander me. That day in Jiawei City, our Jojo let you off for the sake of your master. With her personality, she wouldn't be so bored as to send someone to cause trouble for you. That's right. If I wanted to kill you, I would have done it on the spot. Why would I need to go through so much trouble?" Little Fatty snorted. "You're all her relatives and friends. Naturally, you will speak for her." And Ai Hanji cried out with a pale face. She couldn't help but shrink behind Wei Su. "Senior Brother Wei Su, you must help me. Help me. They want to kill me. Kill me. Don't tell me you have paranoia." The little fatty glanced at the woman speechlessly, and Ai Hanji's cowardly appearance was indeed very difficult to enter Wei Su's eyes. However, as the young master of Medicine King Island, he had to prioritize the people of Medicine King Island in everything he did. Although he was extremely displeased that Ai Hanji showed such cowardice in front of outsiders, relatively speaking, he still believed Ai Hanji's words more. His Excellency, he treated Ai Hanji so well. So how could junior sister Ai harm her own master? That crown princess was simply making irresponsible remarks and spouting nonsense. Arbor stopped Qi Xianxian and the little fatty, who still wanted to argue, and turned to look at Wei Su. "If it's proven that I've been wronged, how will Medicine King Island compensate?" The little stoic's voice was chilly. Chapter 42:18. Like beads falling onto a jade plate, her clear eyes that could reflect a person's figure were even more serene. Wei Su looked at this pair of eyes and couldn't help but be a bit puzzled. This little stoic's eyes were clear and cold, looking very open and candid. She didn't seem to be as vicious as Ai Hanji had previously fabricated, extorting personal gains in return. Wei Su pondered for a moment before nodding and saying, "If this matter is proven to be unrelated to the crown princess, then it's my Medicine King Island's fault. At that time, I, Wei Su, will personally apologize to the crown princess and offer her a 9 abyss spiritual fruit." Everyone started whispering to each other upon hearing this. Whether it was ordinary people or cultivators present, very few people had heard of the 9 abyss spiritual fruit. But Arbor naturally knew. This was a divine rank medicinal fruit. It was sparkling and translucent like a grape, but its color was light gold. It was said that long-term consumption would help increase one's divine power. It wasn't important whether it could increase one's realm, but it was said that its taste was extremely good. After being chilled in midsummer, it was crisp and tasty, and it was also extremely hydrated. Thinking about it, if this fruit was planted in the star domain, it should be pretty good. Arbor didn't give Wei Su a chance to back out and said with a nod, "Remember clearly what you said." Mo Yin lowered his head to glance at his wife and slightly loosened his grip. The little stoic nimbly formed several transparent hand seals in succession, scattering them into the surrounding air in succession. Suddenly, the still air around them continuously produced strips of ripples, dispersing before everyone's eyes like water waves. And Hanji knelt next to His Excellency. He won and tightly gripped a corner of her skirt. She revealed a hesitant and indescribable expression. What was the stoic face doing? Her indescribable hand seals looked complicated and strange. They didn't seem like talisman techniques. And Hanji wished for nothing more than to explode and kill her on the spot. However, doing so would instead expose the drawback of her guilty conscience. She sat there stiffly, unable to budge an inch. At this time, a very clear and transparent image appeared in front of Wei Su. The surrounding crowd let out a series of gasps and exclamations, evidently also seeing the appearance of this transparent image. There were only two people's figures in the image, and it moved very quickly. Ordinary people with poor eyesight could only see the two people arguing. Wei Su's face darkened bit by bit. With his eyesight, he could naturally see that the two people in the image were Enai Hanji and Heewon. Sir Heewon seemed to be reprimanding Enai Hanji at first. After that, Enai Hanji seemed to reply with something. Sir Heewon then stared at Enai Hanji in shock and barely managed to stabilize himself. Just as he was about to leave, Enai Hanji stopped him. His Excellency, Heewon argued with her for a while. He angrily flicked his sleeve, kicked Enai Hanji, and said something. Enai Hanji knelt down and kowtowed, hugging Sir Heewon's leg and begging for something. Heewon's face sank, but he didn't take it to heart. He angrily threw down these words and walked towards the door. Thus, a classic scene occurred. Enai Hanji pulled out a short dagger from her waist and stabbed at the back of Heewon's waist. Sir Heewon fell down with a stunned expression. He wanted to turn his head to look at his disciple, but he was unexpectedly stabbed a few more times by the dagger. At the end of the image, it was Enai Hanji holding a bloody dagger with a vicious expression. Gasps could be heard all around. The disciples of Medicine King Island, who were originally making a ruckus, all turned to glare at Enai Hanji. Chapter 42:19. What was there to be unclear about now? Although there was no sound in the video, how could Enai Hanji stab His Excellency Heewon desperately with a knife in the video be fake? Enai, Junior sister Enai. A green-robed woman beside Wei Su roared. You! Wei Su was naturally so infuriated by this scene that his entire body trembled. He looked at Enai Hanji as if he was looking at a dead person. Enai Hanji shuddered under this gaze and hurriedly shouted, "It wasn't me, it wasn't. Senior brother Wei Su, senior sister Yin Shui. Don't be fooled by this witch. This is witchcraft, witchcraft." Enai Hanji's body trembled as she shouted angrily. You know, she's a talisman master, so she naturally knows witchcraft. Pretending that my master was killed by me, isn't that what she's good at? How could I possibly kill my master? Enai Hanji hurriedly crawled a few steps on the ground and crawled in front of Wei Su in Yin Shui. She cried out in a low voice, "Senior brother Wei Su, senior sister Yin Shui, I've been framed." Scram! Yin Shui, who abhorred evil, kicked Enai Hanji away. Her eyes were spitting fire as she unsheathed her sword with a clang. "You're a crazy bastard. How did Sir Heewon treat you? Everyone on Medicine King Island knows about this. You murderous beast, you're worse than pigs and dogs. How dare you treat Sir Heewon like this? Today, I'll get rid of you on behalf of Sir, and clean up the sect from Medicine King Island." Enai Hanji rolled on the ground, avoiding Yin Shui's sword. She scrambled to crawl towards Wei Su, whose face was as dark as water. "Senior brother Wei Su, senior brother Wei Su, believe me, I didn't kill Master, I didn't. It was her. It was Arbor, she wrongly accused me. She harmed me. She used talisman techniques, to fake this video. And Hanji trembled all over, looking at Arbor as if she was looking at a ghost. What witchcraft was this? How could she present the events of 2 days ago so clearly in front of everyone? Too terrifying, too terrifying. This woman is simply a monster. It was too terrifying. And Hanji's entire body trembled, and she kept shrinking towards Wei Su's side. With her knees curled up, she put on a pitiful appearance and cried out, "Senior brother Wei Su, you'd rather believe an outsider than your own junior sister? Slut." Yin Shue's sword flashed towards Hanji. At this time, you're still pretending to be pitiful. Everyone saw everything clearly in the video just now. You despicable bitch. How dare you deceive everyone on Medicine King Island and make us come here to cause trouble for the Crown Princess? Not only did you kill people and frame them, but you also try to stir up hatred between the imperial family of the Divine Prefecture and the Medicine King Island. Your intentions are worthy of death. The more Yin Shue spoke, the angrier she became. She wished she could stab Hanji to death on the spot. However, Hanji hid behind Wei Su and was unwilling to come out. With a trembling voice, she cried out, "Senior sister Yin Shue, I didn't frame you, nor did I frame the Crown Princess. On the contrary, it was you, the Crown Princess, who relied on your superior power to frame me based on this blurry video. I naturally won't admit it." Emo Yin sneered. "Why are you still talking nonsense with her? Deal with her. What are you doing?" Yin Shue was like a mad lion, glaring at His Highness the Crown Prince and gripping the hilt of her sword tightly. Chapter 4220. My Medicine King Island's inferior disciple will naturally be dealt with by my Medicine King Island. No one else needs to interfere. The Crown Prince couldn't help but laugh coldly as he retorted, "I see that you guys are indecisive and don't know how to deal with it. I'll just deal with it on your behalf." "Do it." "Yes." Several black shadows darted out from all directions and grabbed Hanji's arms. In a flash, Hanji was dragged out from behind Wei Su as if she was a chick. Hanji kicked and tried to resist, but her arms were twisted and broken by the purple forest guards and thrown in front of the Crown Prince and Crown Princess. With a loud bang, Hanji fell to the ground like a dead dog and desperately shook her legs that were still intact. "What are you doing? Senior brother Wei Su, Senior brother Wei Su, are you just going to watch a few outsiders abuse your junior sister of Medicine King Island?" Yin Shue said with a sullen face. "No matter how incompetent our Medicine King Island is, we don't need others to deal with a slut." Arbor's cold gaze swept over the girl. This green-robed girl had a long face and high cheekbones. From her appearance and tone of voice, one could tell that she was a proud and arrogant person. And in Medicine King Island, she was probably someone with an extremely high status. Wei Su looked at Hanji, who was lying on the ground and twisting her body, and suddenly cupped his hands in Arbor's direction. "Crown Princess, my Medicine King Island was rash in this matter. Senior brother Wei Su?" And Hanji was shocked and shouted, unwilling to give up, "You actually believe outsiders, and not me? Slut, shut up." Yin Shue reprimanded angrily. "Do you think that everyone else is a fool? Don't tell me that no one has eyes to see such an obvious image. You said that the Crown Princess of China slandered you and made a fake image. Then why does it look so real? Could it be that she can even simulate the clothes you wore that day and the furnishings in the room?" When everyone heard her words, they couldn't help but understand. That was indeed the case. The furnishings in the image just now were obviously real. Moreover, the clothes on their bodies and various other details were also rather realistic. It clearly didn't seem to be fabricated with talismans. Thinking of the words "time reversal" that the Crown Princess had mentioned before, the people of Medicine King Island, although they did not know what it was, all of them secretly remembered it and planned to check the ancient books later to see if there was any record of it. Wei Su took out a jade box and presented it to the young Crown Princess with both hands. "This is a small token of my apology." Arbor glanced at him and took it without saying anything. She liked people who were straightforward and could admit their mistakes. That was a good character. What he hated the most was the kind of person who couldn't help but put up a last-ditch struggle, even when the truth had already been exposed. And Hanji was one such example. She didn't open the box in front of everyone and directly put the jade box in her inner world. Then, she turned around and glanced at Hanji. Wei Su continued, "Crown Princess, this one has a presumptuous request. Please use a dictum talisman on her. I want to know what Sir Hewen was arguing about with her before he died." Arbor had the same intention. Previously, it was Wei Su and the others who stopped her from using it. Now, it was their own people from Medicine King Island who requested to use the dictum talisman. That was great. However, Hanji trembled all over and screamed. She glared at Wei Su and said sharply, "Senior brother Wei Su, is this how you protect your junior sister?" Wei Su looked at Hanji coldly. "You only have yourself to blame for deceiving your master and destroying your ancestors. Now, I just want to know the truth." Chapter 42:21. Senior brother Wei Su. Hanji gritted her teeth and hatefully said, "Even you were deceived by this woman?" Wei Su directly turned his face to the side, not wanting to say another word to her. Wei Su had nothing to say to this kind of person who had been caught red-handed but was still trying to argue his way out of it. A purple forest guard pulled her up on her knees, and Arbor flicked a dictum talisman toward her, its talisman energy instantly tunneling into her glabella. The jade talisman returned to the young crown princess's hand, and Hanji, who was kneeling on the ground with downcast eyes, was already under the dictum talisman's control. Wei Su coldly asked, Hanji, why did you kill your master?" Hanji abruptly looked up, her face contorted, and she abruptly said, "He asked for it. He only knows how to say that I'm wrong all day long. I'm his true disciple." Hanji angrily roared. "He always nags me about my willfulness and recklessness, saying that I should restrain my temper. Why should I restrain myself for someone else? What does that crown princess have to be so smug about?" Hanji's face contorted. She boasted that she could refine the resurrection pill, but in the end, she couldn't even save her own master. Moreover, if it weren't for my master telling her the resurrection pill's prescription, I think she would have been completely helpless. What's so great about her? She says she's invincible, but it's extremely difficult to do it. Since she's always so arrogant, I'll add a few strokes to the original Bodhi Revival Herb's medicinal diagram so that she'll never be able to find the real Bodhi Revival Herb in this lifetime. She won't be able to save her master. The young crown princess's gaze instantly dropped below freezing. Those two pitch-black pools seemed to be filled with poison, so dark that one couldn't see the end of them. The resurrection pill's leaves are needle-shaped and will never bloom nor bear fruit. She originally thought that His Excellency Hewen's medicinal knowledge was poor and incorrectly drew the resurrection pill, but it turned out that this damn woman tampered with it. If she didn't know the truth, if she didn't have Planet Forest and obtained the revival Bodhi grass long ago, wouldn't she really be like this wretched woman said? Wouldn't she be unable to obtain the real revival Bodhi grass and save Morong Sun in this lifetime? Morong Sun was already so pitiful. She was already dead, so why did she have to feel sorry for her? Why couldn't he come straight to her? Why did she want to implicate her master? The little crown princess felt suffocated and uncomfortable. She pulled out the vine whip from her sleeve with a sullen face. The barbed vine whip landed on Hanji's face. Ugly face, even more vicious heart. However, Hanji acted as if she didn't feel anything and continued to talk nonstop. Whose master is he? Who was her heart leaning towards? When he found out about the revival Bodhi grass, he actually turned around and left, saying that he was going to ask for forgiveness from the crown princess. He also said that he would take my cultivation and expel me from Medicine King Island, and that he would never recognize me as his disciple again. Hanji's face turned cold and vicious as she spoke. Do I, Hanji, still want to live? Do I want to live well? If I'm expelled from Medicine King Island by him, what future do I have? What future do I have to talk about? What did I do wrong? I'm only struggling for my life to survive. If I don't kill him, he'll cripple my cultivation and expel me from Medicine King Island. How can I, and I, Hanji, live a lowly life like a normal person? That kind of lowly person whose life is worthless isn't even worthy to carry my shoes. Everyone was stupefied as they watched her hooting while kneeling there with a bloody face. Chapter 42:22. The current Inai Hanji had a bloody whip mark on her face. It was not pretty at all. The onlookers truly felt that the young crown princess was right. Her face was ugly, but her heart was even uglier. Wei Su turned around and bowed to the young crown prince consort. Apologies, Your Highness the Crown Prince and Crown Prince Consort. It was our first impression that caused you trouble. My Medicine King Island was in the wrong first. I, Wei Su, am willing to accept the punishment of 3 lashes. After speaking, he looked at Yin Shui, who was standing stiffly at the side. Young Island Lord, B. Wei Su removed his outer robe and said coldly with his back facing the crowd. Yin Shui bit her lips and removed the whip from her waist. Her hands were as fast as lightning, and she lashed out 3 times with great accuracy. 3 bright bloody scars appeared on Wei Su's back. Arbor's eyes moved slightly. Seeing him so straightforward, he did not say anything. Yin Shui went forward to pass him the medicine, but Wei Su only put on his outer robe calmly. He turned to Prince Imo and cupped his hands. Your Highness, Crown Princess, Inai Hanji has committed a grave mistake. I will personally escort her back to Medicine King Island to receive the most destructive heavenly punishment. Oh, you want to take her away? Imo Yin glanced at the other party noncommittally. The heavenly punishment of Medicine King Island was to cripple a person's cultivation, cut off their legs, and make them into a medicine man like a stick. Imo Yin had heard of this punishment before. It was famous for being as cruel as being branded by a cannon. Inai Hanji had already regained her senses. Hearing Wei Su's words, she was so frightened that she trembled continuously. The heavenly punishment of Medicine King Island was so horrifying. How could she go through it? Wei Su, you dare to do this to me? Have you forgotten how much my master has contributed to Medicine King Island all these years? It's precisely because Sir He-Wan is a highly respected person on the island of the Medicine King. Yet he was killed by a treacherous villain like you, Wei Su said coldly. Shouldn't a vicious woman like you be sentenced to death? Cripple her cultivation before taking her away, Wei Su said coldly with a decisive expression. Yin Shui had long disliked her. If it wasn't for this woman making a mistake and picking Medicine King Island to cause trouble in the Imperial Palace, how could Senior Marshal Brother be put on the spot and receive 3 lashes as punishment in order to make up for his mistake? Medicine King Island had countless ways to destroy a person's cultivation. Yin Shui took out a bottle of medicine from her inner world and directly poured it into Inai Hanji's mouth. Inai Hanji struggled with all her might, whimpering and whimpering. It was nothing more than her noble status, that she was already a heaven-grade alchemist, and so on. Yin Shui hated her for being ruthless. How could she show mercy to her? In just a moment, he poured the entire bottle of medicine into Inai Hanji's mouth before turning around to look at Wei Su. Wei Su turned to face the Crown Prince and the young Crown Princess and said in a low voice, I will be taking Inai Hanji away. Please do not stop me. Don't worry, Medicine King Island will definitely not tolerate such a treacherous person who killed her master. Arbor looked deeply at this Master Wei and nodded with an indifferent expression. Since it is a family matter of Medicine King Island, it is naturally inconvenient for us to interfere. Master Wei can do as he pleases. Wei Su nodded and bowed to the young Crown Princess. Many thanks. Then, he had someone drag Inai Hanji away like a dead dog and led the disciples of Medicine King Island away quickly. Imo Yin's gaze landed on his stiff back. An interesting person. Your Highness, the Dragon Clan's envoy has entered the city. Chapter 42:23. Arbor couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Her meaning was clear. The Dragon Clan had probably already left before the message was sent, right? That was why they could come so quickly. Who are you? Xiaoma was a bit curious. The merfolk she had seen before were at most side branches like Granny Long, were ordinary merfolk commoners. She had never seen a proper member of the dragon clan. The purple forest guard who came to report bowed. Reporting to the crown princess, the visitor is said to be the dragon clan's young master, Long Qian. Master Jojo was surprised. Oh, the dragon clan had spent a fortune to invite her? It seemed that they were very curious about her. Go and invite my big brother here. Yes. The purple forest guard obeyed and left. Arbor looked up at her husband, who was deep in thought. You think it's strange too, don't you? He's suddenly so attentive to me, as if I'm so important. As the little fellow spoke, she couldn't help but snicker. He clearly didn't care about her at all before and had left her to fend for herself for a long time. Now that he was suddenly so attentive, she was really not used to it. It made her hair stand on end. Yin frowned unhappily. He reached out and pulled her into his arms, rubbing her little face. You're not allowed to talk about yourself in such a nonchalant tone. You're very important, very important. You're my Jojo, the most important Jojo. Yin lowered his head and bit her lips as a punishment. The little fellow twisted her little head and squirmed in his arms. Let my big brother receive that person. I don't want to see them today. Okay. Yin nodded and smiled. Then we'll follow our original plan and go to Half Moon Cliff to soak in the hot spring. Why don't we stay there tonight? Come back after dinner tomorrow? Yin said with a smile. The mushrooms on Half Moon Cliff taste pretty good. Arbor's eyes lit up. Sure. After the two of them finished their discussion, they held hands and ran to Half Moon Cliff to enjoy the scenery. They sent a message to the miserable Mu Xingqian, asking him to go and receive Long Huan. Being abandoned by the irresponsible couple, Big Brother felt rather helpless, but he could only bear the burden without complaint. The place where Long Huan stayed was the largest guest house in the capital city. By the time Mu Xingqian received the message and rushed over, he was already a step too late. When they arrived at the entrance, they were informed that the Dragon Clan's people had been arranged to check in an hour ago. Mu Xingqian was led by the person in charge of the guest house through corridors and bridges, all the way to the Chui Hua Garden where the Dragon Clan lived. The person in charge laughed bitterly and said, "There are more than 30 people in this group." There was a girl with a fiery temper. Just now outside the guest house, there was a guard who took a few more glances at that person before he raised his whip and whipped him. His strength is not ordinary. That person seemed to have thought of the little girl's ferocity when she slapped him. He couldn't help but shudder and shake his head. This official won't accompany young Master Mu in. Mu Xingqian nodded and walked into Chui Hua Garden. Who are you? Just as he reached the entrance, he was stopped by two vigilant men in long, diagonal robes. I'm Mu Xingqian. Mu Xingqian reported his name in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. The gatekeeper naturally knew the purpose of this trip since he could follow his master, Long Huan, to the sovereign capital. He naturally knew what kind of people Arbor and Mu Xingqian were. Chapter 42-24. One of them cupped his fists politely at Mu Xingqian. Please wait for a moment. Then, he hurriedly went in to report. Mu Xingqian didn't mind and waited outside the door. His expression was calm, and he didn't feel awkward about being left outside. Not long after, he heard footsteps. Mu Xingqian raised his head to look. With a glance, he saw a graceful young lady wearing a rainbow-colored cloak. She was surrounded by a few people as she walked over. The girl walked to the entrance of Chui Hua Garden and sized Mu Xingqian up. Her expression revealed faint displeasure. Why are you alone? Mu Xingqian raised his eyebrows and thought to himself, am I being despised? Seeing that he didn't say anything, the girl was clearly unhappy. Why didn't Aunt's daughter come to welcome you? Mu Xingqian lost interest in conversing with her when he saw that she was rather rude. His handsome face darkened as he said indifferently, the crown princess isn't in the capital today. The girl frowned as if she was trying her best to suppress her rising anger. Then why are you here? Mu Xingqian cupped his fists with an indifferent expression. This one was rude. I didn't know that the Dragon Clan's threshold was so high. Farewell. The girl's eyes flashed with anger, and her left hand subconsciously reached for the golden whip hanging at her waist. Suddenly, a mellow and deep voice sounded from behind. Shan Yun, Don't mess around. Long Shang-yun awkwardly curled her fingers and slowly lowered her hand, glaring fiercely at Mu Xingchen. When she turned around, her arrogant and despotic expression from before was suddenly swept away. She flew to the person's side and leaned over like a little bird, calling out sweetly, "Big brother." Mu Xingchen felt his hair stand on end. The person who came was a tall and handsome young man. He wore a slanted, golden robe, which was slightly different from the people of the three provinces. His long hair was held in place with a purple wooden hairpin, and the remaining part of his hair hung down to his waist. He looked gentle and easy to get along with, but the aura of a superior couldn't be concealed. This one is Long Huan. The man in front of him followed the etiquette of the three provinces and cupped his fists at Mu Xingchen. He smiled and said, "My sister was rude just now." Mu Xingchen nodded indifferently and reported his name again. Mu Xingchen. Because Long Shang-yun gave him a very bad impression, Mu Xingchen was too lazy to be nice to her. He simply said, "The Crown Princess and His Highness the Crown Prince left the city today and will only return tomorrow. Please wait in the hotel." Long Qi was stunned for a moment before nodding with a smile. "All right, big brother." Long Shang-yun stomped her feet in dissatisfaction as a faint trace of anger flashed in her eyes. "We don't have much time, Sister Shui Yuan." Shi Long Huan glanced at her. Long Shang-yun pouted and shut her mouth unhappily. Mu Xingchen cupped his hands. "I've delivered the message. Goodbye. Cousin, please wait." Long Qi hurriedly called out to Mu Xingchen. Mu Xingchen looked back indifferently and non-committally glanced at Long Huan. "Is there anything else, young Master Long?" Long Huan saw his cold expression and knew that Mu Xingchen must have developed a bad impression of Long Shang-yun. He hurriedly smoothed things over. "Cousin is older than me by 2 years. There's no need to be so distant. Call me young master. Just call me Huan." "I don't dare." Mu Xingchen coldly rejected. The Long family's threshold is too high. Xingchen can't afford it. A trace of awkwardness appeared on Long Huan's face. Chapter 42-25. On the other hand, Long Shang-yun stomped her feet in anger and scolded, "You're so untactful. You're really shameless." Long Huan turned around and glared at Long Shang-yun. "Shut up." Long Shang-yun pursed her lips and stomped her feet. She huffed and shouted, "Brother, why are you purposely trying to curry favor with this person? With her brother's status, why did he have to compromise so much? In their sea of forgetfulness, in such a large sea area, who would dare to disobey Big Brother's orders?" This Mu Xingchen was merely a youth from a talisman aristocratic family. He was just slightly more talented than the average person, but in their sea of forgetfulness, he was nothing. The tiny China was not even 1/3 the size of forgetfulness. A young master from a small aristocratic family in China actually dared to be so unsmiling and sarcastic to the noble prince and princess of the Long royal family. He was simply audacious. Mu Xingchen really did not know that the family his mother had risked her life to protect back then was actually this kind of family. Why? No wonder his sister was resentful and did not want to see them at all. So this maternal family was really such a weird breed? If the entire Long family was like this, Mu Xingchen felt that Jojo was right not to see them. If the person standing here today was Jojo, with Jojo's personality, this girl would probably be slapped. If you don't know how to speak properly, don't say it. This is China, not your forgetfulness. Who are you acting all high and mighty for? In any case, Mu Xingchen would not fall for it. With Long Shang-yun's ruckus, the atmosphere became even more awkward. Long Huan felt a little apologetic. It was his first time meeting his aunt, Long Qiyun's son, and he actually made such a fuss. This was really a little inexcusable. However, he also understood Shang-yun's temper. She had a child's temperament, and her temper came and went quickly. If Mu Xingchen was willing to go along with this little girl and say a few words, everything would probably be fine. However, looking at his cousin's expression, it was obvious that he already detested the siblings. When he thought about how he had already offended his cousin before even meeting the main character of this trip, Long Huan felt a slight headache. "Cousin, Shang-yun is only 16 years old. She is young and inexperienced. If she has offended you in any way, please forgive her. Mu Xingqian glanced at him with a faint smile and said indifferently, I wouldn't dare. Then, he cupped his hands towards Long Qing and said, I won't disturb your rest. I'll take my leave first. Just as he turned around, he heard a delicate reprimand. How dare you? The shadow of the whip swung against the wind. Mu Xingqian stretched out his hand and grabbed the end of the whip, making it taut. Although this sneak attack failed, Mu Xingqian's palm was cut by some of the hidden barbs at the tip of the whip. Long Yin was shocked. Xiang Yun, stop it now. Mu Xingqian's eyes instantly turned extremely cold. He stared at Long Xiangyun so coldly that the latter couldn't help but tremble slightly. Long Huan leaped forward and patted Long Xiangyun's shoulder. Still not retracting your hand? However, how could Long Xiangyun be willing to withdraw her hand? This whip of hers was made from the tendons of a 500-year-old suspending sea serpent. It was indestructible and unbreakable. It was a rare 15th-grade spirit artifact. Naturally, she wouldn't easily let go of it and throw it into the hands of others. However, in the next second, Long Xiangyun discovered that her golden whip had turned into pieces under the other party's palm. Mu Xingqian mercilessly threw the fragments of the whip in his hand onto the ground. Chapter 42-26. The next day, Lady Qiao Qiao came over and played at Half Moon Cliff's splendid mountain villa for a day. She ate well and lived very comfortably, and only returned to the city with her husband in the evening. After receiving the news, the couple immediately returned to the Mu residence to visit Mu Xingqian. Mu Xingqian didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw his sister's tense expression. I'm really fine. It was just a minor injury yesterday. I've already taken medicine. Look, can't you see the wound at all? Mu Xingqian raised his left hand and flipped it in front of the little girl to let her take a look. Jojo still doesn't know the effects of the medicine she made. The little girl's expression darkened. Young Master Mu's heart pounded as he watched. He felt that his sister's little face was acting out a drama that foreshadowed a storm. Ao Yi. Ao Yi is here. The little girl blinked and looked at a certain someone who suddenly stuck his head out of the window. She said expressionlessly, take some men to the guest house and chase the Dragon Clan people out of the city. Tell them to scram. Scram back to where they came from. This crown princess doesn't want to see anyone. Mu Xingqian was dumbfounded. Aoi was also dumbfounded. He subconsciously glanced at his master. The crown prince glanced at him. Aoi immediately quivered and nodded. Yes, I'll do it right away. What a joke. How could anyone who offended their crown princess end up well? With the young crown prince consort's personality, she would still chase them away regardless of whether or not they were from her maternal family. Mu Xingqian quickly advised, Jojo, big brother, didn't suffer any grievances. It's just a small matter. Arbor shook his head and looked at his husband. Mo Yin patted his head and said in a low voice, Big brother, these people seem to be here for Jojo. They detained the state preceptor and wanted Jojo to meet them. Now that they've personally invited him, they want Jojo to go to the sea again and again. Isn't that strange? Mu Xingqian was taken aback. He thought about it again and nodded hesitantly. Could it be that they have something to ask of Jojo? Mo Lien nodded. That's right. I haven't seen them take you and your sister seriously for the past 10 years. When the Dragon Clan members saw you this time, they immediately asked about Jojo. Isn't that obvious enough? Mu Xingqian's expression darkened. Could they be plotting something? Damn it. Back then, wasn't enough for them to make their mother leave her hometown and marry her to the imperial capital? Now, he even wanted to scheme against his own sister? Why? I don't know what they're after yet, Mo Yin said calmly. But the Dragon Clan's attitude is indeed very strange. Anyway, Jojo had been suspicious of them from the start. In this world, there was no such thing as gratuitous flattery. They must have thought that Jojo had something to gain from him. Mu Xingqian was so angry that he slammed the table. These people from the Dragon Clan have gone too far. Arbor raised her hand nonchalantly and said calmly, That's how the human heart is. They hadn't seen each other for so many years. How much affection could they have for each other? Arbor didn't believe it. People could only develop feelings for each other after interacting with each other. This saying was true. Nephew and niece? They hadn't seen each other for more than 10 years. Now, they were suddenly trying to please her because of blood ties? Haha, did they think she was a naive teenager? Chapter 42:27. Mu Xingqian looked at his sister's cold eyes and felt a little uncomfortable. He knew that if Jojo had not been through so much, she might have been a soft and innocent little girl right now. Perhaps he would end up like Long Shangyun, being spoiled by his family to the point of being whipped if things didn't go his way. He did not know if such an experience was good or bad for Jojo. It was just that, in his bitterness, he felt that it was not easy to have such a sister. Mu Xingqian raised his hand and patted his sister's fluffy little head. He said in a low voice, "If you don't want to see him, then don't. I will support you unconditionally." Arbor's eyes flickered. She rubbed her little head and said softly, "I won't cause trouble for you, big brother." Mu Xingqian could not help but laugh. Big brother is not afraid of trouble. Mo Lin smiled faintly. He looked at his wifey before looking at the man sitting on the side, who was smiling brightly like the moon in the clear sky. He did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that his brother-in-law was becoming more and more pleasing to the eye. On the other hand, in the guest house, it was a real mess. Aoyu was a man of action. After receiving the Crown Prince's order, he immediately brought a group of friends from the night pavilion to do something. In order to successfully drive the people out, Aoyu specially found a few dark court guards who were above the godly state to help. As expected, he had predicted correctly. The moment he relayed the young crown prince consort's intentions, the members of the Long clan actually exploded. "Damn, why didn't you get angry when you hit the crown princess brother without any hesitation? Why didn't you say that you were from the crown princess family? Don't worry about them. If they don't obey, tie them up and throw them out of the city." Aoyu waved his hand and gave the order to the row of youths behind him. "Drive the dragon clan out of the city." Yes, the two sides were about to fight. The people from the dragon clan naturally did not want to be thrown out in such a humiliating way. They had to fight, but Aoyu was a jerk. He knew that the situation was a little dangerous. In order to ensure that the mission was completed, he brought more than 1,000 purple forest guards to help. A dozen of them could beat a dragon clan guard to the point of vomiting blood. Now, there were more than 10 of them surrounding one person. The dragon clan was in a tragic state. By the time Long Huan realized that the situation was not right, the entire guest house was already in a mess. Long Qing had no choice but to fly up into the air and say coldly, "Everyone, please stop. Everyone, I have a keepsake from Aunt Chuyin here. Aunt Chuyin once said that year, as long as you have the token, you can ask her descendants to do something for you." Stay Up Late waved his hand. "Fight!" Everyone pretended not to see anything and fought even more fiercely. The few people in charge of the hotel twitched their mouths and squatted in the corner with their hands on their heads. How would they dare to stop the fight? Long Huan immediately became angry. "Aunt Chuyin has passed away for many years. Don't tell me you still want to ruin her reputation." Stay Up Late gritted his teeth in anger. This kid is really something. She actually held a token and wanted to threaten their crown prince consort into submission. It was not that he wanted to criticize this brat, but with the crown princess's personality, seeing how arrogant he was, it was very likely that she would directly kill him and take away the token. "Fight!" Stay Up Late raised his hand and said angrily. He had followed the little crown princess for so many years. How could he not know what kind of person the little crown princess was? Chapter 42:28. She hated people who were coerced the most. The little crown princess would not blame them even if they killed the entire dragon clan today. Long Huan was anxious when he saw that Aoyu and the others were stubborn. He saw that a few dragon clan members were injured and even more were tied up. His sister, Long Shangyun, had also suffered a few times. Her arm had almost been injured. Long Huan's expression darkened. He quickly grabbed the jade pendant and squeezed it lightly. A figure suddenly floated into the air. Child, is this my child? The woman in the silhouette had clear and gentle features. Her almond-shaped eyes seemed to scan the surroundings with great vigor. Aoyi hurriedly called for everyone to stop. He looked at Long Huan in shock. Long Huan immediately recalled the woman in the figure. He sighed in relief and said with a cold expression, "Go invite your master. If she wants to see Anne again, tell her to come see me personally." Aoyi glared at Long Huan coldly. Then he turned and left without a word. "You will regret this. Long Huan, brother." Long Shangyun cried as she threw herself into Long Huan's arms. She touched the non-existent wound on the back of her hand and pouted. "Brother, these people are too unreasonable. We shouldn't have come to find her. We should have told her to come to the river of forgetfulness. Would she dare not come? The miniature of her mother's life lantern before she died is in our hands." "Shut up." Long Qian glared at his sister angrily and pushed her away in annoyance. "Shangyun, when will you be more sensible? Can you not cause trouble for the family all the time? This matter could have not developed like this. If Xiangyun had not attacked Mu Xingqian unexpectedly and angered the young crown prince consort, she would have been dead already. Why would the little crown princess send people to chase them away? Why would he do such a lowly thing and use the miniature of his aunt's life lantern to threaten the little crown princess? One wrong step would lead to many more mistakes. Didn't he know that his actions would make the little crown princess hate him even more? Although he had never met this little crown princess before, the dragon family had known about the siblings' movements for a long time. They knew Mu Xingqian and Arbor's personalities like the back of their hand. The young crown prince consort wasn't someone who was willing to suffer a loss from beginning to end. Just by looking at her actions today, one could tell what kind of person she was. Trouble. Long Shangyun, however, didn't know that she had caused trouble. She widened her teary eyes and looked at Long Yin with grievance. "Big brother, actually push me? You're scolding me for an outsider. Surround this place. No matter if it's a human or a bird, I'll make it impossible for them to escape." A cold voice came from afar. Fast, it came too fast. Two silhouettes descended from the back of the blue bird as it flapped its wings. Long Shangyun's astonished gaze landed on the white-clothed young man. Before she could recover from her shock, she saw an emerald-green vine sweeping towards her arm. "Have mercy!" Long Huan cried out in alarm. However, the vine whip still landed heavily on Long Shangyun's arm. Before she could finish her scream, she suddenly felt her body become light as a vine whip coiled around her neck and pulled her over. Long Huan's pupils contracted. He saw a beautiful woman dressed in blood-red clothes standing beside a man in snow-white clothes. 5 fingers as white as jade were strangling his sister, Long Shangyun's neck. "The miniature of the life lantern in exchange for your sister's dog life." "Exchange? You're not exchanging?" Chapter 42:29. Long Shangyun could only turn her head slightly to look at Arbor with her neck being choked. After a while, she gritted her teeth and said, You actually shut up." Xiao Mu bluntly raised her hand and heavily smacked the top of her head. "If you spout another word of nonsense, I'll cut off your tongue." Truly, only Xiao Mu could rein in Long Shangyun, this kind of domineering character. After being yelled at like this by Sir Jojo, Miss Long was instantly terrified. Although he wished he could take a bite out of it and drink it, his life was still in the hands of others. He finally recognized the reality and obediently shut his mouth that was full of nonsense. Arbor looked in Long Huan's direction and said impatiently, "How about it? Do you still need to consider?" If she had only disliked the Long family before, then now, it could be said that Arbor had no good feelings towards them at all. When she heard Ao Ye's report that Long Huan had used her mother's soul miniature to threaten her, Arbor felt anger rush to her head. If it wasn't for her remaining rationality telling her that the two people in front of her were very likely her cousins, perhaps the moment they met, she would have reached out with her sharp claws to tear apart this talkative woman in front of her. These despicable fellows did not dare to attack her in the open. Instead, they schemed in the dark time and again. They were cold and vicious. If they had any respect for Long Chuyun in their hearts, they wouldn't have used her life lantern miniature to threaten her today. When she thought of this, Arbor's remaining so-called bloodline was completely burned away by the anger in her heart. She tightened her grip on Long Shangyun's neck. Even from a certain distance away, she could hear the soft cracking of his sister's neck bone, which made his heart jump. No, no. Long Huan hurriedly reached out a hand and tried to steady her breathing and emotions. She shouted, "Cousin, please, please stop. My patience is very limited." Xiao Mu's beautiful, bone-chilling eyes emitted a chilly glint. "Throw the life lantern miniature over. Don't play any tricks on me. Otherwise, I'll strangle your sister to death right now, extract her soul, and make her into a mechanical puppet. I'll make her guard my mother's memorial tablet for all eternity and kowtow in apology." She felt a chill in his heart. Long Shangyun broke out in a cold sweat as a rare trace of fear appeared in her eyes. Long Huan cupped his fist towards Arbor and bowed. "Cousin, we don't mean any harm. Just now, it was only because I wanted to see you that I made such a decision in a moment of desperation. I wasn't being disrespectful to Aunt." "Shut up," Xiao Mu bellowed. "Who wants to listen to your nonsense? Do you think you have a right to bargain with me now? What a joke." Long Shangyun's mouth was slightly agape in shock. She felt as if the 5 iron-like fingers of the small hand around her neck were deeply embedded into her flesh. Mo Yin saw that his wife had lost control of her emotions and was both anxious and angry. He stared at Long Huan with a gaze so cold that it was as if snow was about to seep out. "Kill Dash." He only spat out 2 words. A panic scream interrupted him. "No, no, no, no. I'll give you the token." Long Huan didn't dare to say anything else. He hurriedly reached out and threw the token that looked like a round jade pendant towards Arbor. Mo Yin raised his hand and caught the jade pendant. His cold eyes glanced towards Long Huan. The latter only felt that the cold light was sharp and threatening. Chapter 42:30. The words that came out of her mouth were a very sincere request. "Cousin, can you let Shangyun go first?" Arbor looked down at the woman who was on the verge of death from his strangling, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. This ignorant woman only has herself to blame. Arbor lifted his leg and kicked her, but causing Long Shangyun to roll down from the roof. Crackle, 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 crackle. A string of bricks and tiles flew up, and dust flew everywhere. On the other side, Long Huan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He probably did not expect the young crown prince consort to kick his sister, Long Shangyun, at the last moment. Long Shangyun had probably never been so unlucky in her life. After being kicked down from the roof by Arbor, Long Shangyun fell heavily on the ground and felt that she had lost all her face in front of others. A searing pain came from his neck. Long Shangyun was on the verge of exploding. She wanted to jump out immediately and tear apart the woman who dared to treat her like this. But the strange thing was that no matter how hard she struggled on the ground, she could not break free from the ground. Long Huan floated to the ground and quickly walked to Long Shangyun and bent down to help her up. Long Shangyun only felt dizzy, and she couldn't muster up any strength in her body. Long Huan quickly realized that something was wrong with Long Shangyun and quickly helped her up. He asked in a low voice, "Shangyun, how do you feel?" "I can't stand," Long Shangyun said through gritted teeth. Her angry eyes wanted to glare in Arbor's direction. Unfortunately, Xiao Mu was currently standing on the eaves with Crown Prince Mo, looking down at them from above. Long Shangyun was weak and could not even lift her head. Naturally, she could not glare at them. Arbor looked coldly at the siblings and held the round jade pendant with the miniature of his mother's life lantern. "What is the purpose of this trip?" Hearing her cold voice, Long Huan could not help but feel nervous for a moment. Long Huan took a deep breath and tried to speak in a gentle tone. "Cousin, you have misunderstood us. It's fine if you don't want to talk. See him out." Long Huan's eyes widened slightly. His expression was as if his mouth had been stuffed with a duck egg, filled with curiosity and confusion. He felt that his cousin's thoughts were too jumpy. He could hardly understand her speech patterns. This cousin of his seemed to dislike the two of them, which could be seen from her cold eyes. "Wait, stay up late, and the others were about to chase them away again. Long Huan couldn't help but take a deep breath. Cousin, can we talk calmly? Arbor sneered. Talk. Why do you have to negotiate with me? The miniature of my mother's life lantern? What would you have done if I hadn't come to see you? Crush it? Long Huan's expression changed slightly. He quickly shook his head and said, no way. The little girl's cold gaze fell on his face, her eyes revealing only 3 words, I don't believe you. Long Huan felt like he had shot himself in the foot. He had been too rash just now. Now that the knot had been planted, it would be difficult to untie it. Cousin, can you listen to me for a moment? Long Huan asked Xiao Mu sincerely as he supported Long Shangyun. Purpose? Arbor asked relentlessly. I really don't have a purpose. Under her intense gaze, Long Huan took a deep breath. Chapter 42:31. Arbor stared at him coldly, clearly not listening to a single word he said. Send them away. There is no need to meet them in the future. Arbor turned to look at Lien. The latter nodded and took her hand. Cousin. Arbor looked at Long Hua coldly. I'm not close to you. Long Yi's heart turned cold. He knew that this time, he had seriously offended this unpredictable cousin of his. Grandmother's time is almost up. I hope to see you and your cousin one last time. Mu Xingqian, who had been standing behind Arbor without making a sound, blinked. Why didn't you say anything before? Long Yin took a deep breath. I plan to go with my cousin and cousin, seeing the little crown princess's cold gaze. Long Hua changed his words with difficulty. And the crown princess. Let's sit down as a family and talk about this. I didn't think that things would turn out like this. Crown princess, please forgive her. Long Hua bowed. It was my sister's fault for being rude. The crown princess has already taught her a lesson. Can you remove the drug in her body first? Even now, Long Shangyun couldn't move or stand up. If Long Huan still didn't realize that the young crown prince consort had done something in secret, then he really was a fool. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. After a while, he said, Do you think that everyone in the world is a fool except for you? Long Hua's heart tightened. Why does the crown princess say that? I have not seen you for more than 10 years. You can threaten me with a miniature of my mother's life lantern. Are you worthy of my trust? My elder brother and I have been around for so many years, but you have never thought of us. I really think it's funny. With your intelligence, can you only think of such a lousy excuse? Is it really so important that my elder brother and I can let the dying old lady see her one last time? Arbor suddenly laughed loudly, his laughter filled with endless coldness. Long Chuyun, do you still remember what she looks like? You don't even remember Long Chuyun, so why are you looking at me with such a hypocritical expression and saying that you miss me? Jojo, Mu Xingqian looked at his sister sadly. Lien suppressed her anger and held Arbor's small hand to comfort him. You're disgusting, Arbor said coldly. Her eyes were as bright as diamonds, as if they could clearly illuminate the darkest and ugliest side of a person's heart. Long Qian was speechless. Thinking of the true purpose of this trip, he could only remain silent. Crown Princess, I know you have a grudge against the Dragon Clan. Don't think too highly of yourself. Arbor's voice interrupted him. The Dragon Clan is just a stranger to me. I don't have any resentment or anger towards you. Long Qian stilled. Arbor said coldly, Do you suddenly go crazy and get angry at strangers when you're walking on the streets? Strangers? Strangers. A trace of anger rose in Long Qian's heart. From beginning to end, the girl had tried her best to distance herself from the Dragon Clan. While he felt helpless, he was also slightly angry. He had already humbly pleaded for leniency, but the other party's stubborn look really made him feel helpless. You're too wary of us. Long Qian could only say this dryly. Xiao Mu responded with an indifferent glance before turning around to leave with Lien in tow. Chapter 42:32. A cough, 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 cough. Long Shangyun heaved a sigh of relief. Only then did she realize that she could move. Anger flashed in her eyes as she said indignantly, Brother, she shut up. Impatience flashed across Long Qian's eyes. Seeing that Ao Yi and the others were about to chase them away again, Long Qian raised his hand and took out a letter. There's another important matter on this trip. It's about the plan to fight against Tian Yun together. We need to meet His Majesty to discuss it. Aoya's section Breakamo Lien raised his hand to wipe Jojo's wet hair. He sat beside her and said in a low voice, "They'll meet Father tomorrow." Arbor held the round jade pendant in her hand and kept turning it over and over. She looked a little tired. "Don't think too much." Emolian hugged her and stroked her dry hair. He rubbed her little face. "Father will definitely summon us tomorrow. We'll talk about it then." Arbor's lips curled into a cold smile. "Jojo." Emolian held her little face and looked at her seriously. "Don't be angry because of others. It's not worth it. Don't care what their motives are. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. There's always a way. Okay?" Arbor looked at him listlessly. Annoying. Emolian couldn't help but laugh. He carried her to the bed. "No." He pushed her down and smiled. "I'll always have my husband." Arbor's dark eyes looked at him and then at him. She suddenly pulled the cup over her head. Sleep. The next day, Arbor only opened her eyes when the sun was high in the sky. She sat up and looked expressionlessly at the man who was sitting by the bed and looking at her with a smile. "Morning, Jojo. How was it early? Wasn't it almost noon?" Emolian picked her up and pinched her weak little arm. "Jojo, are you tired?" Chow Mu grumpily cast him a sidelong glance, but when she saw the latter's small, sparkling phoenix eyes, she huffed in a huff. "Let's get something to eat before we go." "Where to?" "Father is entertaining the Wang Chuan Dragon Clan in the Imperial Garden and has invited us over." "Oh, King Zheng and his wife are also here." Emolian was diligently wiping his wife's face. When Arbor heard this, he quickly grabbed his hand. "What are they doing here? Mother's body has almost recovered. Logically speaking, it's time to meet the two of them." Previously, the great emperor had used the excuse that the empress needed to recuperate to reject King Zheng's 2 requests for an audience. It seemed that this had caused King Zheng to feel anxious. Arbor shook his head. "I don't want to live a good life." Who knew what was going on in his head all day long? Mother's personality was very straightforward. If King Zheng hadn't been so scheming in front of her, she believed that Mother wouldn't have given him the cold shoulder for so many days. Although Princess Consort Zheng's looks were ordinary, she was also a diligent and thrifty person. Just look at how Princess Consort Zheng's birthday last time angered her. She truly had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to have such a husband. "Don't mind them." Emolian pursed his lips and pulled the little stoic to the side to eat. "We'll go over after we're full." Who the hell knew if there would be a ruckus there? After all, King Zheng and the Long siblings would be at the banquet later. They didn't look like they would be content with their lot. Arbor deeply agreed. Seeing that her husband had made the arrangements, she sat down with him. When the great emperor's personal eunuch came over to invite them, he happened to see the sumptuous meal in front of the young couple. His mouth couldn't help but twitch. Chapter 42-33. Just how much did His Highness distrust His Majesty? Was he afraid that his wife wouldn't be fed enough and would feed her first before attending the banquet? This little eunuch had been sneaking peeks at the stoic-faced little crown princess the entire way here, as if he was looking at a weirdo. The latter was completely unaware and obediently sat next to Prince Mo, poking the little treasure beast on her lap in boredom. The little treasure beast's eyes revealed a trace of bright sadness, and a pitiful expression hung on its lifeless, furry face. After the little girl poked it continuously a dozen times, it looked like it was on the brink of death. With a conflicted, furry face, it spat out a pill with a PU sound. The little crown princess picked up the pill and glanced at it before silently putting it in her pocket. She sighed and said, "I feed it so many medicinal ingredients every day, but it only spat out a few pills." The spirit root tempering pill that little treasure spat out was pretty good. If it spat out more, it would definitely be good for the children of the Purple Forest Guard. However, this little imp was also very clever now. It ate more than it spat out. Sometimes, when she poked it a dozen times, it would just lie there motionlessly like a dead pig. It would occasionally spit out a pill, which seemed like it was already giving her a lot of face strange. This fellow seemed to understand her a little and wasn't afraid of her poking at all now. It seemed like it firmly believed that the little Master Silver was a paper tiger and didn't pose any threat to it at all. Arbor was a bit indignant. Where was her dignity? Jojo, stop poking it. Yin helplessly reached out to grab the little fellow's small hand and kissed it. Actually, this little treasure beast was also quite pitiful. She saw it looking up at the sky all day long with a bright and sorrowful expression. After looking at it for a long time, she suddenly felt that the expression on that furry face was also quite rich. Spit out another pill. You spat out 5 pills yesterday. Why are there only 4 today? It's getting less and less every day. If you spit out another pill, I won't poke you anymore. Yin, Your Highness the Crown Prince, the Crown Princess has arrived. A eunuch's soft voice came from the garden path leading to the pavilion. The great emperor secretly rolled his eyes and looked out of the garden. These 2 brats really put on airs. They actually dared to make their father wait. Looking up, he indeed saw his good son holding the young crown prince consort's small hand as they slowly walked over. The handsome man and beautiful woman's clothes fluttered in the wind. It was truly an eyesore to look at. Bai Wuxia smiled happily and said, Xiaoma, Chow Chow, come and sit beside mother. There was a round table in the flower pavilion. The great emperor and his wife naturally sat close to each other. There were 2 empty seats beside the empress, which were naturally reserved for the crown prince and his wife. Mo Shikong sat with his wife, Shi Yongyin, across the 2 empty seats. His face didn't look too good. Arbor was led to the table by Prince Mo. He glanced around and saw Long Huan and Long Shangyun sitting beside the emperor. Long Huan hurriedly pulled Long Shangyun up and bowed. Greetings to the crown prince and crown princess. Long Shangyun puffed up her cheeks and reluctantly stood up with her brother. She cupped her hands towards Xiao Mu and Xiao Mu, but when her eyes, which were darting around, landed on Mo Lien, she suddenly paused. It was as if her soul had been hooked, and she stared at him without letting go. Brother, Long Shangyun's eyes were filled with surprise. Last night, when she saw him in a hurry, she thought she was seeing things. How could the person in front of her Long Huan hurriedly pulled his sister? Long Shangyun regained her senses. Chapter 42-34. Bai Wuxiao looked at Long Shangyun with interest. He pulled Arbor to sit beside her, but his gaze was fixed on Long Shangyun. He smiled warmly and said, Miss Long, have you met the crown prince before? Long Shangyun hurriedly sized up the crown prince, then lowered her eyes and shook her head cautiously. No. Bai Wuxiao looked at Long Shangyun curiously. The meaning in this Miss Long's eyes was not what she meant. This younger sister does not know etiquette. I hope the empress will not blame her. Long Huan smiled and smoothed things over, changing the topic. Yesterday, there was a small misunderstanding between us 2 siblings and the crown princess. It was not very pleasant. I hope the crown prince and the crown princess can forgive us. Today, I have prepared a small gift as an apology. I hope the crown princess will do me the honor. Long Huan had obviously checked out the little crown princess's background and sincerely wanted to mend their relationship. So when they met today, she immediately presented the gift. Xiao Mu cast a sidelong glance at the maidservant who walked up to her and bowed slightly in salute while holding a large embroidered gift box. She glanced at Long Huan noncommittally. Seeing this, the 2 dragon clansmen sitting respectfully beside her hurriedly said with a smile, This is a golden lotus from my sea of forgetfulness, the pond lotus sage realm. After consuming it, an ordinary person's lifespan will be extended by 200 years. For cultivators below the god realm, their cultivation will increase by 1 level. For cultivators above the god realm, their cultivation will also increase by half a level. When this was said, even Mo Lusheng and Bai Wuxia could not help but look towards the box. The servant girl was a smart person. She knew the meaning of the song. Seeing this, she opened the box and placed one of the golden lotuses in front of everyone. That golden lotus was only slightly longer than an adult woman's palm.
The petals contracted and gathered together, the small flower body emitting bits of golden light. It was very eye-catching. Bai Wuxia sighed. I've long heard of the great name of the Lotus Sage realm in the pool of forgetfulness. The products inside are truly eye-opening. Long Shangyun immediately became somewhat arrogant. She raised her head and laughed. The Pond Lotus Sacred Land is the largest sacred land within the River of Forgetfulness. Not only is it famous in the sea region, I believe it is also very famous in the 3 prefectures. Cousin, do you like it? Long she asked with a smile. The little stoic obediently sat next to the crown prince without making a sound. She was just like a little lump of wood, not even the slightest change in her expression. Everyone was speechless. What's going on? Suddenly, there was a feeling of not being able to continue the conversation. Could it be an illusion? Queen Bai chuckled. Jojo doesn't seem interested. Why don't you take back such an expensive gift, young Master Long? Long Huan's smile froze on his face. The maidservant held the brocade box with the lid open. She looked at her master, then looked at the little crown princess, and continued to stand there awkwardly. Empress, you must be joking. Long Huan chuckled awkwardly and looked at the little crown princess. How can I take back a gift that has been given out? If the crown princess isn't willing to accept it, then this one can only have someone throw it away. Everyone! Exclamation point. Tycoon, please accept our eyeballs. The little crown princess expressionlessly looked at Long Huan and continued to remain silent. Long Huan knitted his brows and sent a meaningful glance to the maidservant. The maidservant knowingly raised her hand and tossed the box up, even specially tossing it towards the little crown prince under everyone's attentive gazes. They watched as that golden lotus flew out of the box and slowly fell to the ground. Roar! The treasured beast that had been playing dead and not moving the entire time finally moved. Chapter 42:35. Everyone stared blankly at the round little beast that suddenly rushed out. That's right, it was a furry, round little beast that was emitting 5 types of faint light from its body. It had jumped to the ground and directly held the golden lotus in its mouth, chewing and swallowing it in a few bites. Everyone, could it be that they were still in a dream? Were their eyes playing tricks on them just now? What kind of beast was that? It seemed to have swallowed the golden lotus. Yes, their eyes must be playing tricks on them, ah. Long Shangyun stood up abruptly, her eyes almost popping out of their sockets. You? The moment she stood up and raised her head, everyone saw clearly that there were still 5 shallow finger marks on her neck, as if someone had pinched it out. At this moment, it had not completely faded away. Long Shangyun's eyes were filled with shock. She suddenly turned around and glared at Arbor. This is your beast? Little Crown Princess looked at her expressionlessly and frowned. She waved at Xiao Bao, who was lying on the ground and pretending to be dead, and reprimanded. Come back. Xiao Bao immediately scampered over and jumped on her knees. Little Crown Princess used her hand to smooth out the messy hair on Xiao Bao's head and said coldly and casually, Sorry, my little beast likes to pick up the trash on the ground to eat. I made a fool of myself. Everyone, fuck, can we complain in our hearts? Emperor and Empress. Tang Yuan's wife has been led astray by little Tang Yuan. Look at her calm expression and calm expression. Why does she look so serious when she spouts nonsense? Ridiculous. Long Shangyun was furious. This is the golden lotus produced in the pond Lotus Sacred Realm. How can it be done? She really could not spit out the word trash. Arbor blinked and said with a puzzled expression, If it's not trash, why did you throw it on the ground? My Jinjin always likes to pick up the trash on the ground to eat. This habit can't be changed no matter what. You deserve to be beaten. You're not obedient. As she spoke, her delicate little face tightened as she raised her hand and patted Little Treasure's head. After eating the golden lotus, our dear Jinjin continued to lie on Xiao Mu's lap and play dead, as if it hadn't jumped down to eat the golden lotus at all. It completely ignored the surrounding glares that were as sharp as swords. Prince Imo coughed lightly and handed a cup of warm tea to his wife. Will Jinjin get a stomachache? Arbor lowered his head and looked at little Treasure, who was pretending to be dead. He pulled its fur and put the tea beside its mouth, feeding it a few mouthfuls. Don't worry. Give it a bottle of nutrient solution later. Everyone was speechless as they looked at the crown prince and his wife. They always felt that this matter had become very funny. A golden lotus that was hard to find and could increase a cultivator's cultivation realm, after consuming, it was swallowed by an unknown little beast like trash. After that, the crown prince and his wife even disliked it and said that the little beast might have a stomachache after eating. It wasn't this funny. Long Shang-yun was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She raised a trembling finger and pointed at Arbor. Her lips kept trembling. You actually? In her anger, Long Shang-yun felt that she could no longer speak a complete sentence. Arbor looked at her coldly. Looking for trouble? No, I'm not looking for trouble. Long Qian hurriedly reached out and pulled his sister's sleeve, forcefully pulling the frozen Long Shang-yun back to her seat. Sighing weakly, Long Qian looked at the little crown princess with a complicated gaze. Chapter 42-36. This cousin's hostility was very strong. She wasn't willing to accept his present, which meant that she definitely didn't want to reconcile with him at all. What was he supposed to do now? The more Long Huan thought about it, the more his head hurt. His gaze couldn't help but land on the little crown princess's expressionless face again. The little stoic was truly extremely difficult to deal with. Arbor noticed his gaze and looked away after an indifferent glance. He couldn't help but snicker in his mind. These siblings truly had a good idea. Did they think that Sir Jojo would accept anyone's present? Little Treasure's small head drooped listlessly as it lay on the little stoic's legs, pretending to be about to die. Long Huan, who originally wanted to worm his way into being friends with Arbor, suddenly felt his words stuck in his throat when he saw his precious beast's appearance. What should he say? Should he say, "Crown Princess, your little beast ate our family's golden lotus, so does that count as you accepting our Long clan's present?" But the little beast was drooping half dead, and it even had to wash its stomach with nutrient fluid. When it got home, it felt like it had eaten a mouthful of the golden lotus. If by any chance this weak little beast died later on, would the crown princess blame their Long family for this? After all, they were the ones who threw trash everywhere, which led to the little beast accidentally ingesting trash and dying. Everyone glanced sympathetically at the conflicted young Master Long and silently lit a candle for him in their hearts. They could tell that this young crown prince consort and the people of the Long family were like sworn enemies. The crown prince consort disliked the people of the Long family very much. After Long Shang-yun angrily sat down, her eyes glanced at Arbor from time to time, fiercely stabbing her with her eyes. She grew up in Forget River and had lived like a princess since she was young. She had never suffered any hardships, let alone the humiliation yesterday. Her aunt's daughter was too unruly and didn't have the slightest sense of family values. It truly made people hate her to the core. Arbor took the clean teacup from the crown prince and took a sip. "Young Master Long, if your sister doesn't want those eyes anymore, then feel free to continue glaring at me." Long Huan's face was immediately filled with embarrassment. He turned around and saw Long Shang-yun staring at him with her eyes wide open and her face full of grievance. "Crown Princess, Shang-yun is your cousin." Long Huan sighed. "Do you have to treat her like this? Spoiled, domineering, and ignorant." Arbor said coldly, "If I had such an arrogant and ignorant younger brother or sister, I would beat them until their parents couldn't recognize them." Embarrassing. Arbor's words were cold. He looked at Long Huan with a mocking gaze. "If you don't have a good upbringing, don't bring him out to show off. You won't tarnish your family's name." Long Huan's face alternated between green and white. He suddenly felt embarrassed. The little crown princess's tongue was too sharp. Once she opened her mouth to rebuke him, he would start doubting his life. "Ha ha!" Mo Yoshing's awkward laughter was completely out of place with the atmosphere here. The White Empress covered her mouth and laughed. She gently said, "Pass on the food. Everyone should be hungry." "Yes." The young eunuch at the side immediately ran out.
Not long after, the dishes flowed in from outside the pavilion. After the emperor and empress picked up their chopsticks, everyone looked at each other awkwardly and began to eat. The little crown princess was clearly full, but seeing that the dishes were plentiful, she reluctantly started eating. Chapter 42:37. Delicacies naturally couldn't be let down. The little stoic felt that even if she was full, she could still stuff a few more pieces of white jade tofu and the like down her stomach. Kaishio jogged over with a set of dazzling gold tableware in her hands. The little crown princess was expressionless as she picked up some food from the nearby bowls and placed it in that dazzling gold bowl. Kaishio took the gold bowl, picked up little treasure, and walked to a small table to feed it. Everyone, the nouveau riche little crown princess, was using such a large, dazzling gold bowl to feed the little beast. This was too extravagant. A cough, cough, cough. One of the Dragon Clan members, respectfully seated below, coughed dryly and raised his cup. Your Majesty, what do you think of the letter this humble one presented yesterday? Oh, Sir Longmao's plan to eradicate heavenly fate is indeed very detailed. However, we feel that there are still quite a few obstacles when it comes to concrete implementation. First of all, you mentioned uniting the 3 provinces, but you didn't specify who will be the vanguard and who will be the commander-in-chief, Mo Lushing said aloofly. He skimmed through the plan presented by the Dragon Clan yesterday, before having someone clean it up and toss it aside. It was all talk and no practical targeting plan. It only talked about uniting all the forces that could be united. What about the direction? What should be done first and what should be done later? There was nothing. Could it be that after the 3 provinces gathered, everyone would be like a plate of loose sand, and everyone would first have a great battle royale? Ah, Your Majesty is right. That middle-aged man, called Long Mao, nodded with a smile and said, the plan letter we presented to Your Majesty yesterday actually didn't go into too much detail. The concrete implementation method still needs to be discussed in detail with Your Majesty face to face. Right now, the first step of our plan is for Wangchuan Dragon Clan, Divine Province Mo Clan, Underworld Province Ming Clan, and Song Province Rong Clan to each select a group of elites, gather them, and head to Wangchuan's training ground first. We will pool our resources, medicine, and everything. We are bound to turn this group of elites into experts of the God realm and above. In the future, we will use their full strength to eradicate heavenly fate forces everywhere. This is the first step. As for the second step, we will discuss it in detail after we establish the Heaven Exterminating Battle Team. Long Mao was a guest elder in the Dragon Clan. Although his strength was not great, it was said that he was very quick-witted. Just by looking at the way he spoke, it was actually very difficult to tell that he was someone who had received almost no education since he was young. He had not even attended a private school for a few days. The Heaven Exterminating Battle Group? Arbor couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. He subconsciously looked up at the sunny sky outside the pavilion. What did this have to do with the Heavenly Tao? Why did he want to destroy the heavens? That's not a good name. The little crown princess shook her head. She held a spoon in her hand with an expressionless and obedient look. Everyone couldn't help but look at each other speechlessly. Crown Prince Consort, isn't your focus a bit too different from other people's? Now is not the time for you to express your opinion on the name, but your opinion on the plan. Long Mao looked at the young crown princess with a smile and asked with a gentle smile, what do you think, Miss Biao? Kill the Celestial Fate Battle Group. Everyone, for some reason, they didn't want to talk to the crown princess. This sudden emotion suddenly became so intense. Mo Lien suppressed the smile at the corner of his mouth. He felt that he must support his wife unconditionally. Chapter 42:38. We feel that this name is very good. Prince Mo had an unperturbed expression, insisting on saying this name properly. Look, kill Heavenly Fortune, kill Heavenly Fortune. It's easy to understand and catchy. It's much better than destroying the heavens. What we want to destroy is Heavenly Fortune, not the heavens. It won't be good if heavenly law misunderstands everyone. They no longer had any words to describe this couple. While the crown prince explained with a serious expression, the little crown princess obediently sat next to him and nodded repeatedly. She nodded when the crown prince said one sentence. She nodded again when he said two sentences. It was as if the crown prince was her mouthpiece, and everything he said would go straight to her heart. Everyone expressed their helplessness. How could this heavenly law be so bored as to misunderstand the names they came up with? Mo Lucian simply didn't dare to drink water, because he was afraid that he would spit it out in front of everyone. He was a fucking great emperor. If he spat out water in front of everyone, would he still care about his handsome face? On the other hand, the White Empress was very self-restrained. She smiled gently as usual and praised. Jojo came up with quite a good name. Arbor nodded again. None of the beasts disliked the names I come up with. The five-color treasure beast peeked out a lifeless face from the golden ocean bowl and silently swallowed its tears. It really didn't know why its little master came up with the name Jinjin. At that time, its master gave it three choices, which seemed to be very democratic. 5 flowers, colorful, Jinjin. See, there seemed to be a lot of choices, right? In fact, none of the names could be used while the 5-colored treasure beast hesitated with tears in its eyes. The little master thought it was fond of the last name, Jinjin, and then gave it the final word. There was no more after that. Jinjin, do you like this name? But facing you, plus an emotionless face. Not speaking means you like it. Master, I really have a talent for naming. The little beasts all cast sympathetic gazes at the treasure beast. Brother, we've all experienced what you've experienced before, self-righteous. Long Shangyun, who was sitting on the side with a cold face and listening for a long time, couldn't help but tightly grip the wine cup in her hand and sneered. The little stoic immediately turned around to glare at her. Seeing this, Long Mao hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Everyone, the matter of the battle team's name isn't the most important. These are all small matters. We can slowly discuss them in the future. Other than wanting to meet the eldest Mrs. Son and daughter, our young master is here to discuss with His Majesty about the selection of elites for the battle group. Mo Lusheng raised his eyebrows. The Forgotten River Dragon Clan plans to gather the elites of the 3 states and head to the Forgotten River training grounds. Not bad. The reason why we chose the River of Forgetfulness is because the ocean is vast. We chose Lisha Island, the largest island near the Pool Lotus Sacred Land. Long Mao smiled and said, "This island is close to the sacred domain. It's a natural sacred domain. I'm sure it will be of great benefit to everyone's strength." Mo Lusheng twirled the cup at his fingertips. The Forgotten River Dragon Clan is really generous. They're offering resources and environment. Could it be that they want to be the leader of the Celestial Fate Legion? Everyone was speechless, since the Great Emperor had already started yelling, "Kill the Heavenly Fate Battle Group." It meant that the name of the battle group had already been decided. Long Mao smiled faintly and shook his head. Your Majesty misunderstands. Just as Your Majesty said, no one will be convinced of being the leader of the Heavenly Fate Legion. Chapter 42-39. It's even more impossible for us, the dragon family of Forgotten River, to step forward and be the leader, Long Qian said with a humble smile. Fortunately, the Underworld and Tsan continents have already unified their statements and appointed a candidate. If there are no problems with the Emperor, then our leader is decided. Who? Mo Lusheng raised his brows without batting an eyelid. The Tsan continent's Emperor had already ascended to heaven. He didn't seem to have heard that the brat who ascended the throne had any relationship with the old bastard from the Underworld continent. Mo Lian suddenly lowered his head and glanced at Sir Jojo beside him. Sensing his gaze, the latter looked up blankly and returned the Crown Prince's gaze. Prince Mo, looking at his Jojo's blank expression, she definitely didn't expect someone to be thinking about her. The candidate appointed by both the Tsan continent and the Underworld continent is Cousin Jojo. This time, it was the Divine Prefecture's Emperor's turn to look puzzled. He glanced at his expressionless daughter-in-law. Arbor also glanced at the Emperor and frowned slightly. He glanced at Long Qian, who was looking at him with a smile. Young Master Long is indeed trying to get me to go to Forgotten River, Arbor said coldly. Long Qian paused and hurriedly explained. That's not the case. Why would I joke about such an important matter? Cousin is indeed the candidate appointed by both the underworld and the Song continents. You have to know that when the time comes, tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of elite cultivators will gather from the 3 continents. If they hand it over to a suspicious person, neither side will be at ease. And Cousin Arbor rolled his eyes. Not interested. Who had the time to train with them on that lousy island? Long Qian was a little anxious now. Back when they were discussing with the underworld and the Song continents, they couldn't decide on a leader after a long discussion, until the Song continent suggested that the little crown princess be the leader, and the underworld continent readily agreed. Although he did not know what was going on, Long Huan was very sure that the young crown princess had no problems in the Song prefecture and the underworld prefecture. Naturally, there would be no problems in the Divine Land. Long Shangyun's eyes widened when she heard the young crown princess rejection. Since we're discussing the matter of rebelling against the heavenly fate together, as a citizen of the 3 continents, shouldn't you support us unconditionally? How can you so willfully reject us? Do you have any sense of responsibility? No. Arbor put down the spoon in his hand and looked at the emperor expressionlessly. Father, if you're here to discuss this matter, then I refuse. I'll take my leave first. Bai Wuxia couldn't help but want to laugh. He quickly held her little hand and said, Hey, Jojo, you've only eaten 2 mouthfuls. Eat a little before you leave. All right, let's stop discussing. The dishes are getting cold. Let's eat first. Arbor rubbed his round belly. Looking at the table full of dishes, he couldn't eat anymore. Mo Yin scooped a bowl of fish soup for him. Drink some soup. We'll go out for a walk later to help with digestion. Bai Wuxiao looked at his son in amusement. Mo Lucian couldn't help but chuckle. Just now, the little eunuch secretly reported that the young couple had already eaten their fill in the Eastern Palace. They must think that their father didn't give them any food to eat. Thus, until the end of the meal, the young crown princess did not mention a single word about what had just happened. Long Huan was secretly anxious. He turned and stole a glance at Long Mao. The latter shook his head at him, indicating that he should not continue talking about this matter. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.